Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the What If guy, back with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Issei Inherited Goku's Power. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Another ordinary day in Ku found an 8-year-old boy playing with his best friend, also 8, while their parents sat on a bench a few meters away. The boy wore black pants, white sneakers, and a red t-shirt. He had brown eyes and brown hair. The girl wore a somewhat uncommon outfit for someone feminine: white sneakers, beige boys pants, a national team soccer jersey over a white shirt, and a white cap. She had violet eyes and orange hair. They were best friends. Irina ran with a big smile and urged Issei to come, challenging him to catch her. Issei returned the smile and promised he would catch her. The two children played tag, and their parents watched with warm smiles at how much they were enjoying themselves. In the end, Issei reached Irina and tapped her shoulder to tag her, then ran off laughing. Irina chased after him, determined to catch up. The parents found it amusing and overwhelmingly sweet. Irina's father mentioned how happy he was that Issei had gotten along so well with his daughter. Issei's father replied that he was relieved his son had found a good friend, since he was not very good at making friends. Irina's mother asked if he was shy, and Issei's father agreed that it could be said. Irina's mother pointed out that it did not seem that way when he was playing with Irina, and they all laughed. Issei's mother asked when Irina's family was leaving. Irina's parents said they would be leaving that night, around 8 or 9. Issei's mother observed that Issei would miss Irina a lot, and Irina's father agreed that she would miss him as well. After an hour, their time together came to an end. Issei's mother told him it was time to go, and Irina's mother did the same for her daughter. The children asked why they had to leave, then went to their parents. The two families said their goodbyes. Issei asked if they would see each other tomorrow. Irina lowered her gaze and looked sad. She explained that she was leaving that night to travel to Italy. When Issei asked if they would see each other again, she admitted she did not know. Issei felt very sad, but then he smiled at his friend and vowed that no matter what happened, no matter how far apart they would always be best friends. Irina asked if he would promise that, and he promised. Her sadness turned into happiness. They hugged and then left with their parents. On the way home, Issei was quiet. He did not like the idea of his best friend moving to another country. His mother noticed and asked if Irina's departure had affected him. He nodded. She reassured him that he would see Irina again. When he asked with a hopeful smile and bright eyes if she was sure, his mother promised. Issei cheered and jumped with joy. Their parents smiled and the three of them continued home. When they arrived, Issei's father took his keys from his pocket and opened the door. Issei and his mother went inside first, followed by his father, who closed the door behind them. Issei and his father went to the living room to watch television while his mother went to the kitchen to prepare dinner. After 20 minutes, dinner was ready. Issei's mother called them to eat, and father and son came to the dining table together. They were each served a plate of spaghetti and meatballs. Issei inhaled the delicious aroma and enjoyed the meal. His father complimented his mother on the dinner, and she smiled. After they finished, she took the plates to wash. They put Issei to bed, helped him into his pajamas, and laid him down. His father called him his champion as he wished him good night. Issei yawned and said good night to his father. His mother kissed his forehead and wished him good night as well. Issei yawned once more and fell asleep. Their parents smiled, left the room, and went to their own bedroom to sleep. Issei woke because he heard something fall and break. He felt scared, put on his slippers, opened his bedroom door, and peered down the hall. He called for his mother and father but received no answer. He went downstairs toward the living room, and what he found terrified him. Issei saw his mother collapsed on the floor, clearly injured and unresponsive. He could not believe what he was seeing and felt like he might cry. Hearing another noise coming from the kitchen, he hobbled over and discovered his father impaled by a sword. His father tried to urge his son to run, but a man in a black suit with a scarf covering his face finished the deadly attack in a swift, final strike. The attacker removed the sword and Issei watched his father slump to the floor, lifeless. The masked man looked at Issei with a cold, psychopathic stare and laughed in a chilling way. Issei, already terrified, grew even more so when the man suddenly sprouted a pair of black wings in a dark, unsettling transformation. Issei could barely form words as he asked what the attacker was, and the man dismissed him as a brat. Issei tried to flee the house, but the attacker was faster and grabbed him by the collar before he could reach the door. The attacker tightened his grip and brought a knife close, threatening Issei. A voice then sounded inside Issei's mind, offering a way to end the attacker. The voice asked whether Issei wanted to kill the man. Issei thought about it and remembered his parents. He answered that he wanted to end the attacker. The voice warned that everything had a price and asked what it wanted. The voice said it wanted a part of him. Issei hesitated only for a moment, then agreed without caring what the cost might be. He told the voice to take his heart if necessary to avenge his parents. A sudden light appeared around Issei. Flames enveloped him, and the attacker let go, burned by the heat. The attacker reacted in disbelief that a child could wield such power. Issei formed a blast of energy in his hand and aimed it at the attacker, commanding him to disappear. The blast struck and hurled the attacker into a wall. The attacker stammered in fear, mentioning the word demon, and Issei heard the inner voice urging him to finish the job. Issei's hands glowed red and he unleashed a massive red wave of energy that smashed through the wall and out toward the front yard. The flames around Issei faded, and when the dust settled, the attacker lay motionless, defeated. Issei remained mostly terrified, but a small, dangerous part of him felt a fierce hunger for retribution. His left hand then began to glow green, and the voice told him it would be best to escape. Startled, Issei asked what was happening and whether the voice had a name. The voice introduced itself as Draig, an ancient celestial dragon that had been sealed away. Draig explained that the attacker had been a demon and that there were three main factions: demons, angels, and fallen angels. He added that dragons like himself were separate from those three. Draig told Issei that because Issei had agreed to give part of himself, he was now a dragon as well, not entirely, but half dragon and half human. Issei was bewildered and repeated that he was now 50% dragon. Draig explained that when he had asked for a part of Issei and Issei had offered his heart, it had been necessary to grant the power needed in that desperate moment. Shivering from the cold and still trembling, Issei asked Draig why the demon had killed his parents. Issei began to cry as memories of everything that had happened overwhelmed him. He wondered aloud why someone would want to kill him. Draig replied that it might be because he was a dragon. Issei, wiping his tears, protested that it made no sense and asked why that would be. Draig explained that, as impossible as it might sound, Issei was destined to become someone powerful, and that was why people wanted to finish him. Issei yelled that he was just a child. Draig acknowledged that they both knew he was a child, but recalled an old legend that said Issei was fated to rule over others. Issei asked if Draig might be talking about someone else. Draig insisted he was telling the truth and that Issei was the one they sought because they believed he would become a threat to the other factions. Issei asked how it could be him and not someone who merely resembled him. Draig said he had had several hosts over the years and none had matched the descriptions from the legend. Issei, curious, asked what Draig meant by hosts. Draig reminded him that before Issei was born, he had had several hosts who had possessed the boosted gear. Issei asked about the boosted gear. Draig said he would tell him more about it over the years. Issei asked if Draig would stay with him and for how long. Draig said he would remain until the day Issei died, and then he would seek a new host, and so on. Issei accepted this, though he still doubted the legend. Draig promised that with time Issei would see he was not lying. Issei began to cry again and confessed that he missed his father and mother and felt he would never see them again. Draig told him not to worry, suggesting that at least they must be in a better place now. Issei agreed. Draig tried to cheer him up by pointing out an advantage to being a dragon. Issei brightened and asked what that advantage was. Draig explained that as a dragon his body would become much stronger, faster, and more resilient than the average human. Issei asked if that meant he would become stronger than others. Draig said that with proper training he likely would, and asked if that was not great. Issei responded enthusiastically and gladly accepted. Drake then asked for his name. Issei told him he was Hyudo Issei. Drake declared that from that day forward they would be partners. Issei smiled through his tears and agreed. Two shadowy figures then appeared in front of him. They announced that they had found him and ordered him to come with them. Their voices sounded sinister, and Issei stood up, frightened. The figures spread demon-like wings, and Issei remembered the man who had killed his parents. Drake urgently instructed him to run. Issei bolted out of the alley, sprinting as fast as he could while the winged figures pursued him from the air. Issei asked, panicked, whether they could fly. Drake urged him to keep running. He raced through the city, following sidewalks he did not recognize. To his left was a highway, and a few meters to his right flowed a broad river. Exhaustion began to set in. One of the demons called out that Issei would not escape, and then unleashed a powerful blast of dark energy. The attack struck nearby, sending Issei flying through the air in a dramatic, slow-motion arc straight out of an action scene. He saw the demons laughing cruelly as something inside him stirred. He caught sight of the river below just before he lost consciousness, and then he fell into the water, sinking from the demons' view. The demons taunted one another, debating whether someone that young could have survived such an impact, and dismissed him as a useless dragon before deciding the place was boring and leaving. Meanwhile, Issei's body drifted in the river, carried along by the current with nowhere to go. Issei awoke and wondered where he was. The first thing he saw was a girl with black hair, hazel eyes, and small cat-like ears. The girl greeted him kindly. Startled, Issei scrambled to his feet and asked who she was. Looking around, he saw only trees and the bright sun lighting the clearing and asked again where he was. The girl explained that he was in a forest. Issei was surprised and wondered how he had gotten there. A second voice, deeper and amused, came from within him. Drake explained that the river had carried him, that he had been unconscious for some time, and that if he had been a normal human he probably would have died. Issei bristled at the suggestion that he was anything other than himself. Issei turned back to the girl. She wore a long-sleeved black shirt, light blue denim shorts that reached her knees, and she was barefoot. When the boy hesitated, his attention fixed on her ears, he asked if they were real. The girl looked surprised and confirmed that they were. She explained that she was a cat spirit. She asked if he had ever heard of such beings, and when he shook his head she assured him she would explain later and asked his name. Issei gave his name as Hyudo Issei. The girl introduced herself as Kuroka Tojo with a warm smile. She offered to take him to her home and said she might have clothes he could change into, since his pajamas were soaked. Grateful, Issei accepted and followed her into the forest. On the way, Kuroka mentioned that she lived with her younger sister and declined to talk about their parents when Issei asked. After about 15 minutes they reached a small wooden house. Kuroka led him inside. The first person they saw was a small 6-year-old girl with white hair and hazel eyes, wearing a white dress patterned with pink flowers. Kuroka opened her arms and the little girl hugged her, addressing Kuroka as her older sister. The child looked puzzled when she noticed Issei, and Kuroka introduced him as Issei. The little girl bowed politely and gave her name as Chiron. Issei returned the bow and asked to be called simply Issei. Kuroka offered to fetch clean clothes and instructed him to wait inside. She and Chiron left to get water. Issei took in the modest but cozy house. A kitchen, a couple of beds, and a chest. Kuroka found a white shirt and a pair of black denim pants in a drawer and handed them to Issei, asking him to change. As Issei changed, Drake commented on how kind Kuroka seemed. Issei noted to the spirit that Kuroka had also lost her parents, and Drake pointed out the shared experience with a hint of sarcasm. Issei and the dragon exchanged a brief, dry back and forth before Issei finished dressing. He left the house barefoot, enjoying the cool wooden floor under his feet, and headed east 10 meters as Kuroka had instructed. He found Kuroka and Chiron at a spring, filling buckets of water. Kuroka greeted him cheerfully and asked if he could help. Issei obliged and helped fill the buckets. As they walked back toward the house with their loads, Kuroka asked Issei whom he lived with. He looked away and said he did not want to talk about it. Kuroka, surprised, realized that he had also lost his parents and offered him a place to stay. Chiron eagerly agreed and encouraged Issei to stay with them. The white-haired girl spoke in a tender, childish voice and thanked them. Kuroka told her that she would have to help with the chores. Issei agreed and asked to be shown how to do them. Kuroka only smiled and shook her head slightly. 8 years later, Issei and Kuroka met at the spring. The black-haired Nikomata sat at the edge with her feet in the water while the brown-haired Issei swam in the pool. Issei approached Kuroka and expressed how refreshing the water felt, inviting her to join him. Kuroka declined with a sad expression. Seeing Kuroka's sadness, Issei climbed out of the spring and sat beside her, wearing black swim trunks and showing the athletic build he had developed over the years. He asked if she was still thinking about Chiron. At the mention of that name, Kuroka remembered the past and could not hold back her tears. Kuroka wondered why she had not been able to protect her sister and confessed that she did not know where Chiron might be. Issei told her that Chiron must be okay. Kuroka snapped back, asking how he could be so sure, standing up and showing her anger. Issei stood as well and met her gaze with a calm, serious expression. Kuroka insisted that Chiron was her sister and that it had been 2 years since they had any news, accusing Issei of sounding indifferent. Issei took Kuroka's hands and explained that Chiron had been like a sister to him too, and that he had felt the pain when the demons took her. He tightened his grip briefly and leaned closer, telling Kuroka that he understood her pain, that he believed Chiron was strong, and that something inside him told him she was safe. He asked Kuroka to trust him. Kuroka sensed the sincerity in his words. She released her hands, wiped her tears, and embraced Issei. She apologized for overreacting and said that it was still very hard for her. Issei assured her that he understood and repeated that Chiron was strong and would find help, and that they would see each other again soon. Kuroka asked him to promise, and Issei promised with a warm smile. Issei returned the hug, wrapping his arms gently around Kuroka's waist in a comforting gesture that made her look at him with a faint blush and a nervous flutter. They sat very close, both a little shy. Then Issei flashed a mischievous grin and suggested going into the water. Before Kuroka could react, Issei playfully pushed them both into the spring. They burst into laughter as Issei swam and teased, and Kuroka complained about her clothes getting wet. He pointed out that she would not have to worry about washing them and invited her to swim with him. Kuroka responded with mock fury and swam after him. Issei paddled across the spring in surprise, and a lively chase began. The playful pursuit lasted for more than half an hour, and in the end they both had a lot of fun. 3:20 a.m. 8:40 a.m. 10:10 a.m. Both boys emerged from the spring. The brown-haired youth dried himself with a towel he had brought, put on a long-sleeved black shirt and dark blue denim jeans, and, as usual, remained barefoot. He had tied his hair back into a ponytail. After so many years living with Kuroka, he had never cut it. Speaking of Kuroka, the black-haired girl walked beside him. She had barely managed to dry her hair because all her clothes were soaked from an earlier mishap caused by Issei. They were walking through the forest toward home to have breakfast. Kuroka thanked Issei in a sarcastic tone for throwing her into the water. Issei smiled and responded that it had been a pleasure. Kuroka said she needed to change, glancing at her wet clothes. Issei laughed and said that her face had been funny. Kuroka crossed her arms and looked away, insisting it had not been amusing. Issei then asked for forgiveness. Kuroka said she would think about it and a small smile tugged at her lips. When Issei asked what he would need to do to be forgiven, Kuroka replied that this time he would have to organize the house. Issei accepted the task and found it easier than expected. They arrived home and opened the door. Issei could not believe what he saw. The place was a mess. Dirty dishes piled up, buckets of water spilled across the floor, beds left unmade, books scattered about, and even a broken glass on the ground. Issei asked when they had last cleaned. Kuroka replied it had been a week. Issei suggested hiring someone from the village, but Kuroka reminded him that he had asked for a way to be forgiven and this was what she wanted. She handed him a broom, a mop, and a dustpan, and said she would go to the spring to take a proper bath and change clothes because she deserved it. Kuroka went to the doorway, told him she hoped everything would be clean when she returned so she could prepare breakfast, and then left, closing the door behind her. Issei looked around the chaotic room and wondered if it could get any worse, and then his stomach growled, a reminder of his big mouth. A gem on his left hand shimmered and a familiar voice chuckled that it never tired of saying that it liked that girl. The gem then asked how Kuroka had not been surprised when she first met him, and he had revealed that he was a dragon. Flashback. The brown-haired boy at 8 years old was outside with the cat spirit sisters. He had been helping Kuroka with the meal, attempting to light the fire with small sticks. One of the sisters asked him what he was. The left-hand gem on his arm glowed green and produced a small gem that drew the sisters' attention. The gem introduced itself as Drake. Kuroka reacted with wonder and asked if Issei was a dragon. Issei explained that he was half human and half dragon. The gem added that he would not remain fully human in a few years. Kuroka exclaimed that this was incredible and asked if he could breathe fire. Issei answered that he could not, and the gem urged him to try to help. The gem encouraged him and Issei, taking a breath, blew toward the wood. A burst of flame surprised them both and lit the kindling. Kuroka was greatly impressed. The gem said it was pleased to have helped and its glow faded from his arm. Issei stood there astonished by what had just happened. They finished their preparations and were ready to cook. Then a flashback. Back in the present, Issei set to work cleaning the house so that breakfast could be prepared when Kuroka returned. They remembered the old days with a bittersweet smile. One of them spoke of good times and the dragon remained silent. The other admitted that not all moments had been pleasant, but insisted on focusing on the positive. Then one of them cut the conversation short and reminded the other that chores still needed to be done, and the reluctant response followed. While the brown-haired young man began to clean, Kuroka was at the spring, washing beneath the waterfall and letting the cool water clear her mind. She wondered how Issei was doing and noted how he had grown over the years. She also realized, quietly and with some surprise, that she had developed deeper feelings for him. Recalling advice from her mother and a book she had found years ago made her understand that she was in love. The memory of a playful moment when he had taken her by the waist and their faces had come close flashed through her mind, followed by the recollection of being pushed into the water, which made her laugh to herself. A brief fantasy about closeness passed through her thoughts before she steered herself back to the present. Kuroka finished washing, put on a simple white shirt and denim shorts, tied her hair back, gathered the wet clothes, and headed toward the house. She hoped Issei had already finished his chores. She arrived to find the house spotless and was surprised. She had not expected so much to be done. Issei lay on one of the mattresses, clearly exhausted. Kuroka teased him, suggesting he wanted her forgiveness, and he muttered about what she'd made him do. Despite his tiredness, she insisted he help prepare breakfast, making a small, pleading expression that he could not resist. He groaned but stood up, admitting defeat, and she celebrated her small victory. They went outside to collect firewood. Issei lit the fire with a small puff of flame, and Kuroka set a fish they had caught the day before on a spit. They worked in companionable silence for a short while before the conversation turned to food. Issei remarked that after years of eating mostly fish, fruit, and water, simple meals felt surprisingly good. Kuroka asked if he had had a wider variety of foods in the city. Issei smiled with a touch of melancholy and said he missed the dishes his mother used to make. Kuroka observed that he must miss her a lot. He admitted that sometimes he wondered how things might have been different if certain events had gone another way. Kuroka suggested he might have had a better life, and he countered that whatever had happened, something good had come of it. He had met Kuroka. The admission made Kuroka flush slightly before she switched the fish, reminding him that it was almost done. They ate a modest breakfast of fish, orange slices, and water. It was not a grand meal, but it was enough. After a few quiet bites, Issei asked if they would continue working on the boat later. Kuroka agreed without hesitation, noting that they were close to finishing. Issei smiled at the thought of finally completing the boat and sailing to the city to look for Chiron. Kuroka was glad to see him so happy. It brought back the warmth of the days they had shared as children. They finished eating and took a short rest. It was 11:15 a.m. Issei and Kuroka lay against a tree watching the clouds drift by. Kuroka asked Issei what the city was like. Issei replied that he did not know if it had changed much, but that there were cars, huge buildings, schools, parks and lots of food. Kuroka asked how sure they could be that Chiron was in that city. Issei explained that when the demons had taken her they had flown in the direction from which he had arrived, so it was a possibility. Kuroka fell silent, thinking about her sister. Issei promised that if Chiron was not in Ku, he would search the whole world if necessary so the sisters could be reunited. Kuroka thanked him and turned her head to see Issei smiling up at the sky. She confessed that she could never have wished for anyone better than him. Issei looked confused and asked what she meant. Kuroka said he had always been there to protect her and Chiron, had helped her grow stronger and had supported her when she needed it most. She could not imagine what would have happened if he had never come into their lives. Issei blushed and said that Kuroka had given him a home, friendship and a reason to feel alive again. They moved a little closer until their faces were only a short distance apart. Kuroka took Issei's right hand in her left. She hesitated, thinking about how her parents had explained love, and tried to say what was on her mind. Issei asked what she wanted to say. Kuroka asked if he knew what love was. Issei answered with a shy blush that he thought it was when two people fall in love and decide to be together. Kuroka nervously wondered whether Issei had understood her hint and noted to herself that he could be very innocent. She began to speak, then paused. After a quiet, tender moment, Kuroka confessed that she loved Issei. Issei felt his heart lift and, after a moment, admitted that he loved Kuroka as well, explaining that remembering what his parents had taught him made him realize it was love. Kuroka smiled broadly. She asked what they were now. Issei said that according to the book she had read, they were boyfriend and girlfriend, and that he liked that. They both felt happy about it. Raindrops began to fall, and they noticed the sky turning gray. Issei said it would be better to go inside. Kuroka agreed with a smile. They went into the house as the rain started in earnest and sat on one of the mattresses, smiling at each other. Kuroka stood and retrieved a book from the drawer that she said she had found near the river. It had been damp when she picked it up. Issei opened it and found some pages stained from moisture while others were perfectly legible. He glanced through it and then closed it, setting it beside the mattress. Issei rose and embraced Kuroka from behind, saying that nothing was better than being with her. Kuroka responded that she loved him, and Issei told her he loved her too. They turned to face each other, smiled and shared a brief, affectionate moment. Then they both yawned and agreed to take a nap. Each of them lay down on their own mattress and turned onto their sides so they could look at one another before drifting off. The brown-haired young man and the black-haired cat girl woke up deeply troubled. Both felt a strange presence. They knew what it was and exchanged a serious look. Issei and Kuroka muttered a curse at the same time. They stood and went outside to see what was happening. The forest was burning, and 4 hooded figures stood among the flames. One of the hooded figures announced that they had found the security eye and the cat spirit they had been searching for. Another ordered the pair not to play dumb and said they would be taken with them. The leader then instructed the others. 2 would take the girl while the other 2 would handle Issei. The other demons nodded. Issei called Kuroka by name and told her to run as far as she could. Kuroka agreed, and at the signal she darted into the trees. 2 of the hooded figures chased after her while the remaining 2 moved in to confront Issei. Over the years Issei had grown stronger in combat, but these enemies were formidable. He had to push himself harder than ever. He fired a burst of energy at them, but the attacks were evaded with ease. One of the demons vanished from his view and then reappeared behind him. The demon declared that he had him. Issei could not react in time and was struck hard, sent tumbling several meters before landing face first. He scrambled up, clothes and face streaked with dirt, and saw the demon laughing and calling him weak. Anger flared in Issei. He charged forward and landed a punch that drove the demon back. The demon felt the impact on his face and realized his nose was injured. Furious, the demon lunged to strike, but Issei blocked the blow. Seeing the hatred in Issei's eyes, Issei delivered a crushing blow to the demon's midsection that left the attacker winded and staggering. He followed up with several more strikes until the demon collapsed, clearly defeated. Issei then gathered energy in his hand and unleashed a concentrated blast that consumed the fallen demon in a brilliant flash, leaving behind only a scattering of ash. The remaining demon watched in shock as his companion was consumed. He braced to attack, but at that moment Kuroka cried out Issei's name. Hearing her voice, Issei abandoned the battle and sprinted into the forest. After a frantic search, he found Kuroka in a daze on the ground, injured and surrounded by the two remaining hooded figures. She called his name in a weak voice. Issei demanded to know what they had done to Kuroka, rage visible in his movements. One of the demons struck him with a sphere of energy, throwing him against a tree and knocking him to the ground. The other demon incanted a spell that formed an invisible barrier around the area where Kuroka lay. Issei charged forward but slammed into an unseen wall. He struck the barrier again and again while shouting Kuroka's name. One of the demons taunted him, explaining that the barrier was designed so that no one could enter or leave and that it was indestructible. Kuroka, with a small, tearful smile, urged Issei to look for Chiron and to do it for them. She spoke softly of goodbye and how much she cared for him. Issei pounded the barrier in anguish and begged them to release her, but the demons chanted and a crimson circle with strange symbols lit up beneath them. The circle brightened until the demons and Kuroka vanished, and the barrier dissolved. Issei fell to his knees, unable to accept what had happened. He had lost the girl who had found him, given him a home, been his best friend and the one he loved. Rain began to fall, dousing the flames. As the drops washed the forest, Issei's tears fell into the damp earth. A mocking laugh sounded from behind him. The demon he had left on the ground earlier stood there, taunting him for his weakness. Rage and hatred rose in Issei. He swore he would not forgive them for taking Kuroka. A dark red aura flared around him as he prepared to end those who had taken her. A gauntlet materialized on his left arm, red with a green gem set into it. Energy crackled within the gauntlet as Issei focused. He aimed at the remaining demon and released a massive surge of power that overwhelmed the attacker, reducing him to ash in a blinding explosion. Issei collapsed back onto his knees and struck the ground, overcome with grief. He cried out for Kuroka and vowed that he would find Chiron and bring Kuroka back, whatever it took. First, 5 months later, Issei had finally achieved the goal he had always wanted to accomplish with Kuroka. He had reached Ku. He arrived at a harbor without noticing because he had fallen asleep during the voyage. He wore dark blue jeans and a white shirt. He carried a small box that held a couple of garments, 2 bottles of water, a toothbrush, and an empty bag. The empty bag remained from when he left the forest. He had taken a few fruits that were gone within 2 weeks and then spent more than 2 months at sea. To survive, he caught fish and ate them, sometimes raw. His hair was a little longer and slightly messy, and he had undergone training to become stronger. For 2 months, he trained to become stronger both mentally and physically and to increase his powers so he could face anyone. The constant training had hardened his attitude while leaving a trace of his innocence. He had gained muscle and a little height. At that moment, the young man was asleep on a small boat as it approached a harbor. A man of about 40 stood on the edge of the pier. He carried an air of elegance in a gray suit, black shoes, and dark glasses. He noticed the brown-haired youth sleeping and called for him to wake up. Startled awake, the youth looked up at the man and lost his balance on the rocking boat, falling into the water. The man called for him to get out and retrieve the box that had fallen into the water. The youth pushed wet hair from his face, grabbed the soaked box and hoped the clothes inside had not been ruined. He climbed the ladder onto the pier and took in the man standing there. The man seemed shorter than him, or else Issei was simply very tall. At 16 years old he already measured 1.87 meters. The man asked what he had been doing asleep on that boat. Issei rubbed his eyes and said he had been trying to reach Ku. The man replied that they were already in Ku, which surprised Issei. The man wondered aloud why he had arrived by boat and why he had no shoes. Issei hesitated over whether to tell the whole truth and sought guidance from Drake inside his head. After a brief exchange, Issei decided to tell the story Drake suggested. He explained that he had fled to another country with his parents years before, and that a few months ago terrorists had attacked and his parents were killed, so he had escaped on the boat. The man listened with visible surprise behind his dark glasses. He asked Issei his name and learned it was Hayudo Issei. Then the man explained that much of the cargo at the harbor contained items illegal in the country, such as drugs. Issei remembered his mother's warning to be careful accepting things from strangers and felt a wash of worry. The man said he could not deliver certain packages himself because he was being watched, and he proposed that Issei deliver the orders to his clients in Ku as a favor. Issei felt a mixture of relief and concern, thinking it sounded too good to be true and silently hoping he would not be forced to take drugs. The man told Issei he would give him clothes and pointed to a small house about 10 meters from the pier where Issei could change. He added that there were extra garments there and Issei could pick what he preferred. The man almost forgot and handed Issei a set of keys to open the door. He told Issei from a distance that he would wait near his car so Issei could pick up the deliveries, then walked away with some workers. Issei did not know what to think, but he needed a place to change, so he walked to the house, used the keys to open the door, went inside and closed it. He looked around and found nothing unusual: a sofa, a wardrobe, a television, and a small table. He also noticed a drawer beside the door with a mirror hanging above it. A small gem appeared in Issei's left hand and asked what was wrong. Issei said he could not explain it, only that it felt strange, like seeing his life before what had happened. The gem asked whether he remembered much. Issei admitted that his memories only went back to when he was 5 years old. The gem asked what memories he had of those years. Issei answered that he recalled things he did with his parents and meeting a girl he used to play with. The gem asked if it had been a girl. Issei confirmed that her name was Irina Shidu and that she had been his best and only friend at the time. The gem asked what had happened to her. Issei explained that she had moved to Italy and that he had no other memories. The gem observed that his life seemed to have become more interesting after he met Kuroka. Issei remembered the moment when demons had taken Kuroka and sighed deeply, admitting that he missed her. The gem acknowledged his feelings. Thoughts of those demons brought a surge of hatred. When the gem asked if he hated them, Issei answered that demons were the worst thing in the world. Issei set the box on the table and opened it, only to find his clothes soaked. He muttered that it was the last thing he had expected. He went to the wardrobe and saw many garments: shirts, pants, shoes, and even underwear. The man had not been lying. There was a lot of clothing. Issei hesitated about wearing someone else's underwear and asked the gem whether the clothes were new. The gem said they looked new and suggested the owner kept his own items elsewhere. Issei accepted that and took some clothes to change. He put on a fresh set, then black jeans, a purple shirt that fit his muscular frame, black shoes, and a black jacket. He looked at himself in the mirror and noted that the clothes felt a little tight. The gem remarked that his training had increased both his height and muscle mass. Issei agreed and then noticed his long wet hair. He asked aloud whether the man might have something to tie his hair back. The gem suggested checking the drawer. Inside the drawer he found a bag of colorful hair ties. He felt a bit lucky and chose a black one, using it to make a low ponytail before checking his reflection again. Issei reflected that the last time he had looked at himself in a mirror was 8 years ago. The gem reminded him that he had seen his reflection in a spring. Issei acknowledged that he had, but admitted he had never paid much attention because he was always distracted by Chiron and other concerns, and then his thoughts trailed off. He remembered Kuroka, and now as he paused to look at himself, he felt like a different person. Drake told him that having been away from modern life so long made that feeling normal. He agreed. Drake asked how it felt to wear shoes again. He looked at the shoes on his feet and admitted it felt strange. Drake laughed and urged him to go make those deliveries for the dealer. He said he did not know what trouble he had gotten into. He picked up his box and went out toward the harbor to find the man but found nothing. A voice called from a short distance away. He turned and saw the man more than 10 meters from the small house, accompanied by 2 men, a white Renault, and a Harley-Davidson that caught his eye. The man called Hayudo to come closer. He approached. The man handed him the orders. One of the man's men took a backpack from the car and tossed it to him. Issei caught it and put it on. The man also gave him the addresses. When Issei asked what to do after making the deliveries, the man said he would receive money and could keep it and the motorcycle. He had more in his garage. Issei agreed, nervous. The man told him to get going and warned that if he failed to do the job he would be killed. Drake muttered that he was a fool. Issei's inner voice told him to calm down and promised they would deliver and not hear about it again. Drake accepted reluctantly. He mounted the motorcycle and put on the helmet that was on the seat. He did not know how to ride it at first, but Drake gave clear instructions and he followed them carefully until he managed. Now he rode along the road, torn between wanting to finish the deliveries quickly and feeling alive again. He reached the first address, dismounted, kept his helmet on to hide his identity, and opened his backpack to take out a sealed bag he did not want to inspect. He knocked on the door and a woman in her 30s answered wearing a somewhat disheveled red dress and smoking a cigarette. She was attractive, with a pretty face and messy hair. She asked what he wanted. He handed her the bag. She remarked that Daichi must have grown tired of seeing her and had sent a large man instead, smiling at him. His cheeks flushed, hidden by the helmet. She went to get the money and returned with a payment of 20,000 yen. He thanked her and put the money in his backpack. She added that if he wanted, he could stop by that night since she was often alone. He blushed but declined politely, saying he still had other deliveries to finish. She laughed softly and he mounted the motorcycle and rode away. As he rode, he thought about the money and Drake noted that with that amount he could pay for an apartment. He considered the idea. He wanted to find an academy and study to build a better future. Drake agreed. He continued making deliveries throughout Ku for several hours, always wearing his helmet to conceal his identity. He arrived at each place, handed over the package, received a substantial payment, and left. He almost completed all the deliveries and looked forward to finishing. Drake reminded him that with the money he could buy a house and some furniture. He resolved never to do anything like this again. Drake said that a previous partner had died because of drugs, that the man had overdosed and was lost. Issei felt grim at the thought. Finally he reached his last destination, a black house with a gothic touch. He thought the occupants must love drugs. He dismounted, took off his jacket to retrieve the final envelope, and sensed a peculiar presence that was not demonic but curious. He did not give it much thought and walked to the door. He knocked and waited. After about 10 minutes the door opened to reveal a girl with black hair, violet eyes, and wearing leather. The woman apologized for the delay as she handed over the bag. Issei thanked her and noticed that she was shorter than he had expected, roughly 1.65 meters. He felt briefly flustered by her looks but kept his manners and introduced himself as Rainer, extending his hand. She returned the greeting and told him to come inside so she could pay him. Issei followed, though something about the offer felt off. When Issei entered, the door closed behind him and he found a room in near darkness. Black curtains blocked any outside light, only 4 candles provided a dim glow. He saw 4 other people, 4 men, and kept his hands in his pockets, trying not to show his unease. Strange paintings lined the walls, angelic figures streaked with red. One wall bore a message declaring that the fallen angels would dominate the world. Issei felt alarmed. He knew about fallen angels from Drake and understood they were dangerous. Issei said he would leave, feeling distrustful. The purple-eyed woman answered that his pay was already there and, with a sadistic smile, invoked the word dragon. She spread black, angelic wings, and at the same moment Rainer produced a purple spear and ordered him to disappear. The woman unleashed a burst of energy toward Issei. Issei caught the spear with his hands and crushed it, causing it to shatter. The fallen were surprised. Rainer shouted for them to capture him. The 4 men spread their wings and moved to attack. One of them struck Issei in the face, but Issei barely reacted as he brushed the blow aside. In a blur of motion he was suddenly behind the attacker. Without gore or spectacle, Issei delivered a decisive, non-lethal maneuver that incapacitated the man and sent him collapsing to the floor, unconscious. Issei turned, smiling coldly, and asked who would come next, eyes flicking toward the remaining fallen. They were in another part of Kuro, in an academy classroom where 4 students were gathered, 3 girls and 1 boy. The boy wore brown shoes, black pants, a white shirt with a black ribbon at the collar, and a black jacket. The girls wore brown shoes, magenta skirts with white trim, white shirts, black jackets, and black capes over their shoulders. Kiba asked if everything was all right. He was blonde with gray eyes. Rias, the red-headed girl with blue eyes and a voluptuous figure, replied that she was fine but visibly worried. Akino, the long black-haired girl tied in a ponytail down to her legs, with violet eyes and an even more voluptuous figure, noted that Rias looked concerned and asked if she was sure. Rias hesitated and said she did not know how to explain the situation. Kaneko, a small girl with white hair and hazel eyes who looked like a typical 14-year-old, asked what was happening. Rias sighed deeply and explained that she had received a call from her brothers saying that the Security had apparently been found here in Kuro. Kiba reacted with surprise. He then asked what they should do and reminded them that they could not kill the Security. Rias answered that killing was out of the question. They would have to find him and ask him to join them. Akino asked what would happen if he refused. Rias said they had to secure him. It was advantageous to have the Security on their side. The situation felt familiar to Kaneko. Rias turned to Kaneko for her opinion. Kaneko said she did not know and continued unwrapping a chocolate candy. Meanwhile, Issei was still in that gothic house. The place was a mess. Some candles had been knocked over while others remained lit, and the rooms bore the signs of a fierce fight. He had already taken down almost all of the fallen one by one. Only one remained, Rainier. She was trapped in a corner with no clear escape. Issei moved in slowly. In the darkness, Rainier could only make out his green eyes with reptilian pupils. She shouted for him to stay away, terrified and blaming them for what had happened. Around her lay the lifeless forms of her companions, clearly defeated in battle but described only as fallen and motionless, not in graphic detail. Rainier, cornered, put her hands behind her back and formed a small dagger. Issei reached and gently lifted her chin with one hand to look at her more clearly. She looked nervous and clutched the dagger tightly, then slipped her hand free and slashed at his face. The blade scored a cut near his eye, drawing a single drop of blood that slid down his cheek. Issei recoiled, covered the wound with his hand, and then Rainier lunged so that they fell together to the floor with her on top, intent on finishing him. She attempted to stab him in the face, but Issei caught her wrist with his other hand and held the dagger inches from his face. He pushed her off, stood, and watched as she reached for the blade that had fallen a short distance away. Anticipating her move, Issei stepped on her hand to stop her from grabbing it. Rainier screamed in pain and rage at the restraint. Issei's expression was cold. He had intended to leave her alive, but he realized it would be a mistake. A gauntlet of power appeared on his arm as he prepared a charged energy burst. He warned her silently and then unleashed the attack. Rainier was overwhelmed by the energy in an instant. The blast struck her and extinguished her ability to fight. After a brief moment in which her cries faded, only a smoldering, defeated form remained. Issei removed his foot from what was left and told himself it was better to leave. Drake, speaking within Issei's thoughts, commented with relief and surprise at how easily Issei had handled the fallen. Issei noted that Drake's training had helped shape him into what he had become. They exchanged terse mental remarks about their next destination. Issei mounted his bike, started it, and left the house. His eyes returned to normal and the gauntlet vanished from his arm. He felt anger beneath the surface but decided to get away for a while. He rode for about an hour and arrived at a neighborhood that was quiet and empty in the late hour. Issei looked around and announced that they had arrived. Drake asked where they were as a gem of light appeared in the dragon's hand. Issei explained that they were in the neighborhood where he had grown up. Drake admitted surprise that Issei still remembered the place after so many years, and Issei said he, too, was surprised but that certain parts of Kuo had remained clear in his memory. His friend commented that Issei surprised him more every day. Issei laughed and told his friend to say whatever he wanted. The brown-haired young man got off the motorcycle with his backpack still on and walked through the neighborhood until he stopped in front of a house. Memories rushed back to him. Issei thought that it was his house. It looked the same as when he had left it, abandoned, with a huge hole in the wall from the battle where he had defeated the demon that had killed his parents. The only difference was the police tape draped across the property. His friend asked if he wanted to go inside. Issei admitted that he did, but that remembering that day made him feel something strange. When his friend asked if it was fear, Issei clarified that it was not fear but confusion. His life had changed after that event. His friend offered to leave if he preferred not to look, but Issei said he would be fine and would take a quick look. Issei checked both ways to make sure no one was watching. After a few minutes, satisfied that the coast was clear, he stepped onto the lawn, removed the police tape, and ducked through the large hole in the wall. Inside, he found the furniture covered with sheets. His friend wondered who could have done that, and Issei suggested it might have been the police. He continued to search. He tried a light switch on the wall, but nothing happened. His friend observed that the lights did not work. Issei was fortunate to see where he was stepping thanks to the faint light coming through the windows and the gaping hole. Although the windows were partly blocked by police tape and heavy dust dimmed the light further. He moved through the living room without finding anything unusual and went to the kitchen, which brought another bad memory. The kitchen was orderly but thick with dust. He opened the drawers and found them empty, no cutlery, plates, or glasses. Issei wondered who had taken everything. He closed the drawers and left the kitchen, then went down a hallway to a first-floor bedroom. The light grew dimmer as he walked, but he found the door and turned the knob to enter. Inside, he saw his parents' bed and a small wardrobe with a couple of drawers. The wardrobe and drawers were empty. Issei and his friend both thought for a moment that something might be left, but in the end, everything had been taken. His friend suggested they might have given the items to the needy, but Issei wanted to know what had happened to all the belongings. When his friend asked whether there was another place he wanted to see before leaving, Issei let out a long sigh and said there was one more. He went back through the living room and climbed the stairs. On the first step he remembered seeing his mother lifeless, and for a moment he thought of leaving, but he forced himself onward and climbed to the second floor. He walked down the hallway until he reached the door to his old room and opened it. Inside were his bed, a closet, a nightstand, and a small 20-centimeter mirror sitting on the nightstand. Nostalgia made a tear fall, and Issei picked up the mirror and wiped the dust away before studying his reflection. He did not know what to make of the man looking back at him. He noticed the scar Rainier had given him on his right eye and did not like it. He traced the mark with his finger and examined his face. He told himself quietly that he was no longer the same as before, his voice tinged with disappointment. His friend told him he looked more mature. Issei stared at his reflection for several minutes, then set the mirror on the bed, left the room, went down the stairs, and stepped out of the house. He walked back to his motorcycle and climbed on. He said they should go. When his friend asked where, Issei explained that first he intended to buy a house and second he needed to eat, since he had not had breakfast all day. His friend asked what time it was, and Issei began to answer. Drake admitted that he had no idea. The brown-haired man told him not to worry and suggested they go look for a house. Drake approved. The brown-haired man started the motorcycle and began to drive. While they rode, Drake asked if the brown-haired man knew where houses might be for sale. The brown-haired man said there should be for sale signs along the road. Drake agreed that was likely. The brown-haired man kept driving while Drake noticed that the other's voice had grown a little deeper. The brown-haired man asked if that was true, and Drake confirmed that it was. 2:55 p.m. Flashback. Issei stood in the middle of the forest with his arms crossed and a serious look, exactly where Kuroka had been taken. He asked Drake how the dragon planned to train him when Drake was trapped in his mind and Issei was alone in the forest. Drake replied that he would train Issei with illusions. Issei questioned how a sealed dragon could do that. Drake reminded him that Issei had given him his heart, and that gave Drake influence over his mind. Issei told him to do what he had to. He only wanted to become stronger to get Chiron back and, with difficulty, avoid saying the other name. Drake agreed. The dragon manipulated Issei's mind, bringing a sharp headache that forced him to his knees. After a few minutes the pain stopped and Drake told him to look around. Issei found himself surrounded by 10 hooded demons. He demanded to know what they were doing there. Drake reassured him they were products of his imagination and explained that his training worked by forcing his hosts to face what they hated most. For Issei, the illusions took the form of demons. Before Issei could react, 2 of the demons attacked. Issei fell to the ground with a bloody nose, saw the demons, and heard their cruel laughter. Drake criticized him for letting them hurt him. Issei refused to remain on the ground and rose to fight. Anger moved through him and he was able to trade blows with the attackers, striking one so it dissipated and kicking the other until it vanished. The remaining demons assumed combat stances. Drake's words became sharper, taunting him about past failures and telling Issei that he had been unable to save his parents or Chiron. Each accusation stoked Issei's fury until a crimson aura swelled around him. He ground out an order for Drake to be silent. Drake suggested finishing the fight, and Issei, overwhelmed by rage and determination, refused to be told what to do. He then unleashed his strength and began to defeat the illusions that represented his painful memories. And a flashback. Elsewhere in the city, Academy, Akino, Kiba, and Kaneko were discussing how to convince the security when Rias returned from a call with her brother. She sat down on a sofa beside Akino and sighed deeply. Akino asked what Rias had talked about with her brother. Kiba asked if there was any advice from Lucifer-sama about finding the security, and Rias said there was not. Akino then asked why Rias seemed in a low mood. Rias explained that she needed to buy groceries because her parents and brother were coming to visit and she had to prepare dinner. Akino offered to accompany her and Kaneko, while chewing a sweet, also volunteered. Kiba added that he would go as well. Rias thanked them and said they would go after classes. When Akino asked what Rias intended to cook, Rias answered that she was thinking of lasagna or herb-seasoned fish. Rias added that her family would arrive Saturday night. Akino suggested they go shopping in the morning, and Rias agreed with a smile. Meanwhile, with Issei 11:20 a.m. Issei was on a different side of Ku. He had left his motorcycle beside a parked car in front of a house that was for sale and was knocking on the door, waiting for someone to answer. Drake asked if he thought anyone was home. Issei said it would be the height of irony for a house on the market to be empty. Drake agreed. Issei added that the car in front of the house must belong to someone. The door opened and Issei saw a married couple in their 40s. He asked if he could see the house. The woman smiled and invited him in. The couple showed him the 2-story house. Issei was surprised by how nice it was. The first floor had a living room, a kitchen, 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. The second floor had 3 more bedrooms and another bathroom, and there was a garage where he could keep his motorcycle. He fell in love with the place and bought it on the spot, spending around 120,000 yen but not worrying because he still had money. The couple handed him the keys and left in their car, leaving Issei with his new home. Issei parked his motorcycle in the garage and then went inside. He told Drake that in the end everything had worked out. Drake admitted that the new house was great. Issei noticed his backpack and said he needed to buy a number of things. Drake asked how much. Issei listed the basics he needed: sofas, a television, beds, a refrigerator, a stove, dishes, the usual items. Drake asked if he would buy them right away. Issei said he would, but then fell silent because his stomach gave a long growl. He told Drake he was very hungry. Drake teased about fish, water and fruit. Issei said whatever. After 2 years simple food tasted good. Drake agreed. Issei took the keys and left the house to look for a place to eat. Saturday 7 a.m. Issei was sleeping soundly in his bed until a noisy alarm woke him and he turned it off with frustration. Drake, appearing as a gem in Issei's hand, reminded him that he had warned him. Issei admitted he should have listened. He got out of bed wearing only a white shirt and boxers. He looked around his bedroom. A bed, a small nightstand with the alarm that had woken him, and a wardrobe with a few clothes. He did not have much, but he liked how it looked. Issei reflected that the deal had been worth it because he had been able to buy what he needed. Drake agreed. Issei went into the living room, which had 2 sofas, 1 single and 1 for 3 people, and a 42-inch television. He sat on the sofa and turned on the TV to watch the news. Through the windows he could see that the day was cloudy. The broadcast reported the arrest of Daichi Hashimoto, a trafficker accused of shipping cane, heroin and other substances. The news showed images of the man and Issei felt surprised because it was the same person he had seen at the port. Drake chuckled at the coincidence. Issei wondered who had pushed Hashimoto into that life. Drake reminded him that Issei had helped with some orders in the past. Issei said he had not continued with that work and that right now all he cared about was breakfast. Drake suggested that Issei either go eat at a cafe as usual or buy groceries and cook for himself. Issei decided to buy food and asked for some time to get ready. He went to the bathroom, showered, wrapped a towel around his waist, went to his bedroom and put on his underwear, dark blue pants, a white shirt and black sneakers. In the mirror he noticed his long wet hair falling over the eye with the scar. Drake asked if he would tie his hair up. Issei said no, since he would only be out for an hour. Drake remarked that sometimes he could not understand him, and Issei noted that Drake had been with him for more than 8 years. Issei grabbed his black jacket from the coat rack, took his keys and money, and left the house on his way to the supermarket. Rias, Akino, Kiba, and Kaneko were on their way to the supermarket. The girls wore knee-length coats that hinted at their denim pants beneath, along with gloves and hats. Kiba wore black pants, a long-sleeved white shirt, and white gloves. Rias thanked them again for their help, and Akino smiled and reassured her that it was nothing. Rias apologized for worrying them with her parents' visit, the academy, and the security matter. Kiba reminded her that they were supporting her with a smile, and Kaneko echoed the sentiment. Rias returned their warmth with a grateful smile and asked them to keep their presences low so they would not attract enemies. Akino, Kiba, and Kaneko lowered their presences as they approached the supermarket. Just before entering, Rias accidentally bumped into a young man. She blushed and apologized. The young man waved it off and told her to go first. Rias thanked him and stepped inside with the others, but she could not help noticing the young man again. Long brown hair with a strand covering his right eye, a brown eye visible, and a notably muscular build. Rias thought he was handsome. Issei minutes earlier. Issei walked through the streets of Ku with his hands in his pockets, watching parents with their children, shopkeepers opening their stores, and a few cars pass by. Drake spoke to him in his mind and urged him to lower his presence. Issei asked why, and Drake explained that both demons and the fallen might have detected him because his presence was large enough to draw attention. Issei agreed and lowered his presence. When Issei reached the supermarket, he bumped into a girl who apologized. He smiled and told her not to worry, inviting her to go first. He then took a different aisle to shop, relieved that the store was not crowded. Despite lowering his presence, Issei felt something familiar about a nearby group of people. He asked Drake if he had noticed it too, and Drake confirmed that he had. Issei recognized the presence as a dragon and reflected that his training had improved his ability to detect even faint presences. Drake asked if Issei would take action if necessary. Issei considered the suggestion and admitted he might if it came to that. Issei picked up a few groceries while Rias and the others did the same. Akino suddenly paused and told Rias that she felt a strange presence in the store, faint as if someone were trying to hide. Rias said she could not sense anything. Akino explained that the presence felt like a dragon. Rias, Kaneko, and Kiba lowered their voices in surprise. Rias asked Akino to lead them to where the presence came from, and Akino obliged. They followed Akino down an aisle and found the young man Rias had bumped into earlier. Rias was confused to realize that he might be the dragon Akino had sensed. Issei was reaching for a box of cereal when he noticed presences behind him. He stood with his back to them, already suspecting who had arrived. Drake confirmed that they had no intention of leaving. Issei turned to face the 4 demons. Tension rose between them. He looked at Rias more than the others and thought she was very pretty, though it was unfortunate she was a demon. Akino told him they wanted to talk. Issei internally acknowledged that they had discovered he was a dragon and asked what they wanted. Rias, surprised that he knew they were demons, asked how he had recognized them. Issei scoffed at the attempt to hide their presences and said he had expected nothing from them. Akino attempted to explain that their intentions were not hostile and that they only needed him to come with them. Issei replied that he had heard that before from demons and that such encounters had ended badly for him in the past. He said his family had been taken, and his tone reflected the pain of that history. The group fell silent at the revelation. Issei noticed Akino watching him nervously and felt an odd unease about her. Kiba stepped forward and placed a hand on Issei's shoulder to ask him to cooperate. Issei reacted instantly, delivering a sharp, non-lethal strike that sent Kiba stumbling back and collapsing at the girl's feet. Rias, furious at seeing her friend fall, declared that he would come with them whether he liked it or not. Issei responded with a cold, determined gaze, making clear that the matter was not settled. Rias glared at Issei, furious at seeing their friend on the ground, and ordered that he would come with them whether he wanted to or not. Issei returned her glare with a cold, murderous look and indicated that they would see about that. Rias told Kaneko to attack. Kaneko agreed and stepped forward. Kaneko moved to within a meter of Issei. She looked up to find a cold stare from him, which made her nervous, and took a combat stance. Issei stated in a dry tone that he would not show mercy just because she was young. He added that she was not the first opponent he had faced. Kaneko worried quietly but steeled herself, determined that she had to act because she could not let anyone hurt Kiba or her friends. Kaneko struck with a flurry of hand blows, but Issei did not immediately counter. Kaneko wondered why he did not attack. Issei judged silently that she was not as strong as he had expected. Drake asked if they should attack, and Issei agreed, wanting to end it quickly. Kaneko attempted a blow to Issei's stomach, but he grabbed her wrist and lifted her so their gazes met. She tried to pull free, but his grip was too strong. Issei looked at her with disappointed contempt. He used his free hand to form a small ball of energy aimed at her midsection. Kaneko was terrified and uncertain what to do. Issei leaned in and spoke a warning in her ear, saying that next time they met it would be better for them to stay away, and although he would not want to hurt her, she would have to comply with what he demanded. He released the energy, and the burst of force knocked Kaneko backwards several meters, where she landed near Rias and Aquino. Rias and Aquino called out for Kaneko at the same time, clearly worried about what Issei had done to their friend. Rias rushed to check if Kaneko was all right. Kaneko stammered that she was okay. Aquino stood and faced Issei. He had his hands in his pockets and wore a bored expression, which only increased Aquino's anger. Aquino shouted at him, furious that he had harmed someone so young. Issei dismissed her as despicable. Aquino, surprised that he had said the very thing she had been about to say, snapped that they had only wanted to talk but that she would not hesitate to hurt him to protect her friends. Small sparks began to gather around Aquino's hand as she prepared to act. Issei merely regarded it with a bored remark. Aquino's anger swelled and she moved to close the distance, but Kiba intervened. Kiba, rising with some difficulty, faced Issei and noted that Issei had looked where he had kicked earlier. Issei casually said that the kick had not been as strong as expected and that Kiba was in decent shape, his attention drifting to the nearby shelves. Kiba felt disgusted by Issei's cold behavior and glared at him with obvious hatred. He told Aquino to go check on Kaneko while he stayed to deal with Issei. Aquino hesitated, still furious at Issei, but Kiba insisted calmly and she went to join Rias and Kaneko. Kiba turned back to Issei, his voice hard with anger, and warned that they would fight and that it would not be easy. Issei smirked and taunted that he had already defeated Kiba easily before and saw no reason Kiba would have a chance now. Rias, seeing Issei's small smile, grew furious. She formed a magic circle and summoned a sword, then threw it to Kiba. Kiba caught the blade with a wide grin and thanked Rias, announcing that he was ready. Issei said that he would see him. Kiba charged at high speed with the sword aimed at Issei's stomach. Issei smiled as a gauntlet appeared on his left hand and he caught the blade with it. Everyone was surprised. The appearance of the gauntlet suggested a familiar, dangerous identity. Kiba, stunned, recognized the possibility out loud that Issei might be the security eye. Issei returned a wicked smile and, for a moment, his eye flashed green with a reptilian pupil before returning to normal. Kiba could hardly believe it. Issei suggested that Kiba look at his sword, then used the gauntlet to shatter the blade. He followed by landing a solid punch to Kiba's face that sent him stumbling backward a few meters. There was no time for Kiba to recover before Issei closed in again. Kiba managed to block another strike by sheer luck, and the two exchanged a rapid series of attacks and parries in a fast, intense clash that resembled an action scene from an animated battle, with neither side sustaining graphic injury but both pushed to their limits. Issei's strikes were so fast that Kiba had to exert himself more than usual. The brown-haired young man smiled when he saw that, stepped back a meter, and ordered Kiba to fight. Kiba, confused, demanded to know what Issei meant. Issei reiterated the order firmly. The blonde, though puzzled, grew angry like Kaneko and a few others who bore some wounds, and he moved to confront Issei. The sparring quickly became heated. Kiba and Issei traded blows to the face. Each hit landed and the exchange dragged on. Kiba's anger only grew, while Issei watched with a hint of amusement. Kiba demanded to know what was so funny, and Issei, after briefly vanishing from sight and reappearing, taunted him by saying that although Kiba was good, he was too overconfident. Issei then struck Kiba hard, leaving him dazed and unconscious on the floor. Issei sensed a larger presence and returned his attention to the scene. A few meters away, Akino glowed as arcs of lightning danced across her body. She insulted him in anger, and Issei laughed, suggesting she knew nothing of his past and asking rhetorically whether she knew about it. Akino guessed his past had not been pleasant, and Issei confirmed that she was right. Akino admonished him not to carry his past alone. Issei replied that, from his experience with demons, he believed they were the worst thing the world had to face. Akino unleashed a small burst of lightning at Issei. He dodged and the blast struck a wall. She pressed the attack, sending more bursts. Issei evaded most of them but deflected one into a shelf, scattering books and sending people into shock at the unfolding conflict. Concerned for the bystanders, Rias cast a quick spell that rendered those watching unconscious, intending to erase their memories of what had happened. With the crowd dealt with, Akino prepared to finish the fight, smiling grimly, while Issei taunted her. Akino closed in to strike, but Issei only dodged her blows without counterattacking. Puzzled by his restraint, Akino paused and tried to steady herself. She reminded him of his previous actions and restrained herself from exploding in fury. Issei asked coldly whether she wanted him to hurt her. Akino shouted that she did not, and Issei laughed before explaining that she was letting hatred and anger guide her. He warned that while those emotions could be effective at times, they often made one vulnerable. Akino asked what he meant. Issei explained that when she had tried to attack him, anger had blinded her and left openings. Akino was stunned by his assessment. Issei vanished from her view and reappeared directly in front of her. He charged his gauntlet with a small amount of energy and held it a short distance from her abdomen. He told her frankly that he had expected more from her, and the energy in his gauntlet swelled into a glowing sphere. Issei released the energy, and Akino collapsed, unconscious. Rias, who had witnessed everything, could not believe what Issei had done to her friends. She rose and stepped a couple of meters toward him. Issei looked at Rias, unsure what to do next. Rias wondered what he was planning, and the inner voice of the dragon asked Issei mentally whether he intended to fight her. Issei moved toward Rias. She grew nervous and tried to back away, but found herself cornered against a wall as he closed the distance until he stood only inches from her. Rias, equal parts defeated and angry, accused him of hurting her friends and questioned how he could now ask her to talk. Issei demanded that she speak. Rias called him insane, insisting she would not simply listen after what he had done. Issei admitted that his actions had not been his best choice and said he did not trust demons. He explained that he had prioritized protecting his closest friend and had intended to prevent any reckless actions, though he conceded he could have been gentler. Rias protested that he had no right to condemn them all for the deeds of others. Issei replied that he had reasons. His parents had been murdered, and two people very important to him had been kidnapped. He let that stand as the explanation for why he had acted as he had. Rias did not know how to respond, so Issei spoke again, asking whether she wanted to talk or not. Rias asked him to leave, explaining that she did not want to talk or fight and only wanted to check if her friends were all right. Issei agreed. He stepped back, opened the supermarket doors, and told her he would see her next time. Rias, avoiding his gaze, replied that she hoped there would be no next time. Issei looked at Rias one last time and told her he was not as bad as she thought. He left the supermarket and began walking toward another place. Issei told Drake that it would be better to go somewhere else. Drake, the voice in his head, asked why he had not attacked her. Issei did not know, answering with uncertainty. Drake teased him about liking Rias, but Issei denied that and said it was simply that she had been so sincere. Drake questioned the meaning of sincerity. Issei explained that he had not intended to fight. After everything he had done, she still refused to fight. Drake asked if that was the reason he had not attacked. Issei thought it might be, feeling confused. Drake then asked what he planned to do now. Issei admitted he did not know, and when his stomach growled he decided to look for another supermarket to eat at. Drake laughed, and Issei told him not to mock him. Drake conceded and then pointed out that Issei might have gone too far with them. The brown-haired man remembered the fight he had with Kaneko, Kiba, and Akino and recalled the things they had said to him. He asked Drake whether he thought he was a bad person. Drake replied that it was hard to say. Lately Issei's attitude could make one think he was, but because Drake had known him for a long time he believed he was not. Issei acknowledged this and accepted it. Meanwhile with Rias, Akino, Kaneko and Kiba 10:30 a.m. Since the confrontation, Rias had brought all her friends to her house by way of a magic circle. She admitted she had been gone for an hour or more to buy ingredients for dinner. Fortunately, she knew Kus City like the back of her hand and found another supermarket. After another hour, she returned home with a couple of bags in her hands, and to her relief her friends were awake and looked better. Rias smiled and greeted them, asking how they were. Kiba rubbed the back of his neck and complained that his neck hurt. Akino, visibly annoyed, called the other man too strong. Rias set the bags of food down, removed her coat and revealed a white short-sleeved shirt with a flower in the center, then asked Kaneko how she was doing. Kaneko said she was fine and that the attack had not been as strong as she had expected, while Rias kept the brown-haired man's warning in mind. Rias said that at least things had not gotten worse. Akino turned to Rias and asked what had happened with that man. Rias answered that he had simply left. Akino asked to be sure that he had not tried to hurt Rias. Rias insisted that he had not. He had only decided to go. Akino said she hoped she would never have to meet that man again. Kiba agreed with Akino. Rias did not pay much attention to her friends because she was still thinking about the brown-haired man's words. He had claimed he was not as bad as they believed. Rias wondered with doubt whether what he had said was true. With Issei Hayudo walked happily through the streets. He had finished his shopping and carried several bags, 5 in total, each filled with months' worth of food and personal care items. The load drew curious looks from passers-by. Drake, the dragon who shared Issei's thoughts, was surprised at the amount and made a teasing remark about it. Issei asked Drake what was wrong. Drake replied that he thought Issei had overdone the purchases. Issei defended himself, saying he simply had what he needed: food, soap, shampoo. The dragon grumbled and Issei laughed, telling him he would have to get used to it. Distracted by the conversation, Issei did not watch where he was going and stumbled into a young woman, sending her to the ground. He immediately apologized and knelt to check that she was all right. The woman was attractive, with long blonde hair parted by bangs and green eyes, wearing a dark blue nun's dress. She smiled and said she was fine and that she could be clumsy sometimes. Issei offered his hand and helped her to her feet. The woman introduced herself as Asia Argento and asked to be called Asia. Issei introduced himself as Hayudo Issei, and they exchanged polite greetings while Issei set his bags down. Asia noticed the groceries and asked if all of the items were his. Issei admitted they were, and Asia suggested he might have bought a little too much. Issei conceded with a chuckle. Drake protested loudly in Issei's thoughts that it was remarkable Issei's extravagance had been accepted by her, and vowed mischief. Issei told the dragon not to be dramatic and turned his attention back to Asia. Asia said she had been heading to the church but did not know exactly where it was because she was new in town. Issei offered to guide her, and she accepted with a warm smile. He picked up his bags and they began to walk together. They walked for about half an hour, and to pass the time they talked. Issei asked where Asia was from. She said she was from Italy and that she lived alone. When he asked about her parents, she explained that they had left her at the doors of a church when she was small and that the nuns and priests had raised her. Growing up in the church had shaped her life. She said she had been happy there and that she was devout. Issei told her he lived alone as well. When Asia asked about his parents, Issei became quieter and recounted, with a measured tone, that his parents had died in a sudden, violent incident when he was 8. He had managed to escape, and many things had happened in the years since, leading him to the life he lived now. Asia expressed sympathy and concern, and Issei said he believed his parents were in a better place. Not long after, Issei pointed ahead and they saw the church. Asia smiled and thanked him for accompanying her. She asked if they might see each other again, and Issei hoped they would. He said that if she ever saw a young man carrying many bags of groceries, it would likely be him. Asia returned his smile and they exchanged farewells. Issei watched her enter the church, thinking that he had liked her. Issei took about 45 minutes to get back to his home. He unlocked the door, stepped inside, and set the bags on the kitchen table, relieved that he had secured food. He spoke aloud to Drake, asking the dragon's opinion, but received no immediate reply. When he began to reach into a bag, a sudden sharp pain flared in his head. He sat down in a chair and clutched his temples as the pain built. After several tense moments, he shouted in frustration and then held his head until the pressure eased. Drake reappeared as the familiar jewel on Issei's hand and told him, with smug satisfaction, that he had fulfilled his plan to make Issei suffer for the shopping. Issei swore he hated the dragon and then, with sarcasm, accused Drake of being pleased with himself. Drake laughed inwardly at Issei's reaction. Issei muttered that the dragon could be infuriating, then turned to begin putting the groceries away, planning what he would have for breakfast. Drake teased him one last time and then fell quiet, leaving Issei to arrange his purchases and settle in for the evening. After a long day, Rias prepared dinner with Akino's help while Kiba and Kaneko arranged the table. The others went to their rooms, then Rias's parents and brother arrived. Rias welcomed them warmly and they ate and talked about ordinary things, but Rias avoided mentioning what had happened earlier that day. After an hour they left, having said something Rias did not like before they went. When they were gone, Rias sat on the sofa and began to cry. Her friends came to see her and grew concerned at the sight. Akino asked what had happened. Rias answered that sometimes she wished they would listen to her at least once. Rias, who was red-headed, embraced Akino, who had black hair. Monday, 7 a.m. The alarm began to sound as usual. The brown-haired young man woke face down and in a bad mood, with dark circles under his eyes and messy hair. He cursed the alarm and reached to turn it off. A small gem appeared in his hand as the dragon Drake spoke to him mentally, commenting that the alarm was unnecessary and had a horrible noise. The young man agreed with a tired comment and sat up, rubbing his eyes. Drake told him to look in the mirror. He did and was surprised to see how tired he looked, with dark circles and disheveled hair, as if he had only slept an hour. Drake asked if he had not been able to sleep. The young man admitted he had not slept well for 2 nights in a row and did not know why, though Drake hinted that the answer was obvious. The dragon suggested the cause might be that he had been thinking about the red-haired girl. The young man fell silent for a moment and then admitted to thinking about her. Drake responded with sarcastic understatement and then the gem disappeared from his arm at the young man's request. After a quick 10-minute bath, he dressed in dark blue jeans, a long-sleeve black shirt, black sneakers, and a watch. He ate a bowl of cereal while watching the news. The broadcast reported another homicide in the city of Ku, this time involving a 16-year-old student of Ku Academy. Authorities had found the boy dead at home with severe injuries. Police and family members were shown at the scene, and officials displayed a note left by the perpetrator that read, "We will find you security." The young man was shocked when he saw the note. Drake told him that the killers had probably been searching for him for years. The young man agreed and suggested the culprits might be demons or fallen angels. The report continued, explaining that with this latest victim there had been more than 100 murders in the city this year, many of them accompanied by the same note, and that this pattern had been occurring for 8 years. The situation had alarmed the whole city because the suspects had eluded the police. He finished his breakfast, washed the bowl, and tied his hair into a low ponytail. He told Drake that they were going to search for those responsible and would not allow more people to be killed. He went to the garage, put on his helmet, started his motorcycle, and rode off to investigate the city. Drake asked where they would go first. He decided to visit Ku Academy, thinking they might find a clue about the demons or fallen angels. Drake wondered whether students might already be arriving for class at that hour. He checked his watch and saw it was about 7:30 a.m., and Drake asked how long classes usually took to start. The young man replied that he had lived elsewhere for 8 years and the schedules had been different. Drake urged him to hurry. After about 10 minutes riding, he finally found the academy, but to his annoyance students were already entering the campus. Drake suggested they go inside. The young man worried that they would arouse suspicion since he was not a student. Drake told him to pretend to be a prospective student interested in enrolling. At first the idea seemed odd, but then he decided it might work and headed toward the academy to see what they could discover. The brown-haired man parked his motorcycle in front of the entrance, removed his helmet, and left it on the seat. He decided to enter the academy and felt a little overwhelmed by how large it was, but he did not dwell on it and began to walk down the halls. He drew many glances from the girls, who smiled and whispered among themselves, while the boys stared at him intensely, which made him chuckle. He acknowledged that he knew this was distracting. His companion warned him not to get distracted and to keep watching the halls, and he agreed. After that, he felt the presence of demons. His companion asked if he could feel them and then instructed him to lower his presence as much as possible and to stay as far away as he could because they did not want to alarm the humans. He agreed and reduced his presence until it was barely perceptible. Sensing the presences drawing nearer, he decided to climb the stairs to the second floor to put more distance between himself and the threat. Rias's house, 11:30 p.m. Meanwhile, Rias and Aquino walked toward the academy. They had already said goodbye to Kiba and Kaneko, who were headed to their classes, while the redhead and the black-haired girl went to their club located in an abandoned building near the school. Aquino smiled and asked why Rias had not slept. Rias asked how she could tell, and Aquino pointed out that the dark circles under her eyes gave it away. Rias laughed, pulled a small mirror from her bag, checked her face, and admitted that Aquino was right. Aquino asked again why she could not sleep. Rias replied that it was because of what her parents had told her. Aquino said she did not believe that was the whole reason. Rias insisted she would be lying otherwise. Aquino reminded her that Rias had said this had been planned for a long time, and Rias confirmed that it had. Aquino, who had known her a long time, said she had heard Rias mention the matter before and did not think that alone explained her sleeplessness. Rias, smiling tiredly, said she sometimes hated how well Aquino knew her. Aquino laughed and asked what the real reason was. Rias said it had only been a nightmare. When Aquino asked what it had been about, Rias dismissed it as nothing to worry about, and Aquino accepted that response. Rias thought to herself that she could not get that brown-haired boy out of her mind. The girls arrived at the club and went inside. Back to Issei, a few hours later. The brown-haired boy continued walking the halls searching for clues but found nothing unusual. He felt uneasy each time he passed a classroom because he attracted the attention of girls and the envy of boys. The dragon Drake observed that the girls seemed interested, and Issei thought the looks reminded him of someone named Kuroka. Drake warned that Issei did not understand the meaning behind those glances, and Issei admitted to feeling naive. A bell rang and startled him. He watched students pour from the classrooms and relaxed slightly, remembering how the bells worked. Then he heard two girls shouting for someone to stop and begging for help. Issei moved quickly. He grabbed the bespectacled black-haired boy by the shirt with his right hand and delivered a precise, stylized strike with his left that sent the bald boy sprawling to the floor in a dramatic, non-graphic way. Two girls, one brown-haired and one with pink hair, stared in surprise at the sight. Issei asked the girls if they had been the ones who had shouted, and both girls confirmed that they had. Issei released the black-haired boy and indicated that the troublemakers were handled. The bespectacled boy demanded who Issei was, and Issei coldly replied that it was none of his concern. When the brown-haired girl asked if he was a student, Issei denied it awkwardly. The brown-haired girl then asked what he was doing there. Issei hesitated and silently asked Drake for a suggestion. Drake advised him on what to say. Issei followed Drake's words and told the girls that he was interested in studying at the academy but did not know who to speak to about enrolling. Drake later commented that the performance was not award-worthy but good enough, and Issei felt satisfied. The girls told Issei that he should speak with Rias Gremery. The brown-haired girl added that Rias was probably in her club but that they could not escort him there. Instead he should speak with the student council president. The pink-haired girl suggested that they could take him to the president, naming Sona Citri. Issei agreed. The bespectacled boy muttered that Issei was not even a student and already had talked to 2 girls. Issei fixed him with a cold glare, which frightened the bespectacled boy into retreat, dragging his bald companion away. Issei found the sight amusing and laughed at them. The 2 girls guided Issei toward the student council office. At first he planned to find an excuse to slip away, but as they approached he sensed several presences growing stronger. Drake noted relief that Issei's presence remained low and easy to hide, and Issei owed the dragon a debt for that. Drake teased that Issei already owed him more than one favor. They knocked on the council office door. A long-haired, black-haired girl wearing glasses opened it and asked what was going on. The brown-haired girl explained that they had someone who wished to enroll and indicated Issei. The long-haired girl examined Issei without much expression and said she would tidy up some matters and inform Sona. She closed the door and the 2 girls thanked Issei for dealing with those perverts and left blushing when he offered a charming smile. He watched them go and leaned against a wall, wondering what trouble he had gotten himself into. The door opened again and the long-haired girl returned, with another serious, short-haired girl who also wore glasses. The long-haired girl identified Issei to her companion. The short-haired girl asked for his name. Issei replied that he was Hyudo Issei. The short-haired girl said she would take him to Rias Gremery to register, and Issei gave a dry assent. He thought that the name Rias sounded familiar and that the name seemed pretty. Drake remarked that something felt off, and Issei agreed that he had the same uneasy feeling. The short-haired girl led Issei through the halls toward Rias. Issei remained suspicious but did not voice his doubts. Along the way he confirmed that his escort was Sona Citri. Issei said he had learned Sona's name from 2 girls who had told him about her. Sona asked if he had expected someone different. Issei replied that he did not pay much attention to appearances and was not one to judge by looks. Sona noticed a scar near Issei's eye and asked about it. Issei explained it had been an accident. An awkward silence settled as Issei trailed behind Sona, watching her with mistrust. Sona then inquired what school year he intended to enter. Issei answered that he would be a second-year student. Sona asked his age. Issei said he was 16 and would turn 17 in a few months. Finally they arrived where Rias Gremery was. Issei sensed 4 presences he recognized all too well. He wondered why those presences felt so familiar, and Drake feared that it might be what he dreaded. After a silent walk, Issei and Sona arrived at a hall where the presences felt stronger. Issei muttered that it seemed the academy was ruled by demons. Sona asked what he intended to do next. The brown-haired Issei admitted he did not know, sounding excessively worried. Sona told him to wait there, and Issei halted his thoughts when he realized Sona was speaking. Issei agreed in a serious tone and remained a few meters back, leaning against a wall. Sona touched the door, and after a few minutes someone opened it and expressed surprise. Sona informed Rias that a boy wanted to enroll. Rias told her to let him in. Sona called to the brown-haired young man, Hyudo, and asked him to enter. Hyudo steadied himself and stepped into the clubroom. Everyone in the room reacted with shock. Rias and Issei both immediately recognized him and reacted at once. Akino, Kiba, and Kaneko also expressed surprise. Hyudo looked around at them in return, astonished to see them there. Sona excused herself and left the room, closing the door behind her. Hyudo remained stunned. Rias, still surprised, asked what he was doing there. Hyudo hesitated for a moment before answering. Rias pressed him to be honest and asked whether he had come to register. Hyudo met Rias's eyes, sighed, and said that registering was not why he had come. Rias asked why he was there then. Akino rose from her seat, visibly angry, and demanded whether he planned to attack them again. Hyudo replied in a colder tone that he had not come to attack, and he warned Rias to calm her friend if she did not want trouble. Rias watched the hostile exchange between Hyudo and Akino and moved to soothe Akino. Rias reminded Aquino that they could not make the situation worse and that Hyudo was very strong, recalling what had happened the last time. Aquino agreed to stay seated but warned that she would not intervene if Hyudo did something reckless. Rias returned to where Issei was sitting, and after a tense silence that lasted a few minutes, Hyudo asked whether they could speak privately. Rias looked to her friends for guidance. They shook their heads to indicate that she should refuse. Rias asked why they could not speak in front of everyone. Hyudo glanced at the others and then back to Rias, asking her to promise that none of them would do anything reckless. Rias returned the condition, asking him to promise the same. Hyudo agreed first, and Rias matched his promise. Hyudo explained that he had seen a news report about a boy who had been killed and that the killers were being sought. He said that he had come to look for clues about the demons or fallen angels responsible, but things had gotten out of hand and that was how he had ended up here. Rias asked why he was searching for them. Hyudo revealed that he wanted to kill those responsible. He then explained that a demon had murdered his parents and that, when he was 8 years old, he had killed that demon. From that day his life had changed, and the whole matter surrounding the security had followed. His listeners were stunned by his words. Rias offered to help him. Aquino and Kiba immediately refused. Hyudo told them he understood their hatred and stated he did not want to work with them. He opened the door to leave, saying he would continue searching for those responsible. The others were left in silence. Rias thought for a moment, then stepped outside the clubroom and saw Hyudo walking away. She called after him. Hyudo turned as she approached. Rias told him she wanted to help. Hyudo reacted with surprise and initially said he had no interest in working with them. Rias clarified that she was not speaking for the others but speaking for herself. Hyudo asked what her motive was. Rias hesitated, then admitted that she had been thinking about him over the last few days and that she remembered what he had once told her, that he was not as bad as she had thought. Because of that memory, she believed him and wanted to help. A voice in Hyudo's head, Drake, suggested that he would only know if she was sincere by working with her. Hyudo agreed, told the voice he would try working with Rias, and told Rias that they could work together. Rias smiled. Hyudo, a little flustered, admitted he had also thought about her in the past 2 days. Rias blushed and then noticed the scar over Hyudo's eye. When she asked about it, he explained that it had been an accident involving a fallen angel. They stood in silence for a moment while Aquino, Kiba, and Kaneko peered out from the clubroom window to watch the pair. Hyudo suggested he should leave and pointed out that their friends were watching. Rias felt embarrassed and apologized for her friend's behavior. Hyudo dismissed it and prepared to leave, but Rias called after him and asked his name. Hyudo replied that his name was Hyudo Issei, and Rias introduced herself as Rias Gremory. Hyudo said it had been nice to meet her and promised he would come find her when she left. Rias agreed. After Hyudo walked away, Rias returned to her friends, who stared at her in astonishment. Aquino, Kiba, and Kaneko demanded to know how she had convinced him to work with her. Rias admitted she had believed him and felt embarrassed. Aquino warned Rias to be careful. She did not know the newcomer well and was worried something might happen to Rias. Rias smiled and assured Aquino that she would be fine. Aquino expressed hope that Rias would be safe. Issei, the brown-haired student, left the academy and found 2 boys with gang-like appearances attempting to take his motorcycle. The 2 boys noticed Issei and their expressions turned hostile. One of them called him a kid and asked if he had a problem, while the other insisted they were in the middle of something important. Issei crossed his arms and insisted the motorcycle was his. The boys responded with surprise and challenge. Issei shrugged and insisted that he did not care. His friends urged him to try to get her back and slapped palms in agreement. The brown-haired young man told them he knew what he was doing. When he saw a group of boys nearby, he approached them and, in an over-and-a-flash, stylized exchange typical of an action scene, he quickly overwhelmed them. The boys stumbled away, bruised and stunned, while Issei remained untouched. He warned that they had picked on the wrong person, put on his helmet, and drove off on his motorcycle. As he rode through the city, he replayed his conversation with Rias and found himself smiling. Drake, the dragon voice in his head, remarked that it had been a while since Issei had been in such a good mood. Issei acknowledged it and answered that the girl must be driving him crazy. Drake asked to talk man to man, and Issei corrected him that it should be man to sealed dragon, which earned the dragon a mild rebuke. They laughed and Drake asked if Issei liked that girl. Issei reacted with surprise and braked abruptly, offended by the thought. Drake pressed, certain Issei would not deny it. Issei insisted he did not like her and claimed only one person interested him, Kuroka. He rode off again. Drake warned that Kuroka had been captured. Issei said he would find her and be with her, reminding himself that she had been or was his girlfriend. Drake pointed out that Issei did not even know if she still was. Issei told the dragon to drop it. Drake asked a hard question about whether Issei could be sure she had not met someone else while she was missing. Issei began to answer but Drake interrupted, asking what Issei would do if she returned having someone else in her life. Issei, a little irritated, asked whether Drake did not trust her. The dragon clarified that he was only being realistic and warned Issei not to cling his whole life to one person. The remark quieted Issei as he continued on. Later he spotted a blonde nun walking down the street. Drake teased about how many blonde girls wearing a nun's habit he knew, and Issei told the dragon to be quiet. Issei parked, removed his helmet, and called out to Asia. Asia turned and recognized him with a smile. Issei greeted her warmly and she said she was on her way to buy groceries. He offered to accompany her. She blushed and tried to decline, but he insisted and she accepted. The market was about 40 minutes on foot, so Issei suggested they ride on his motorcycle. He handed Asia a helmet and reminded her to hold on tight. Asia fastened the helmet and hugged him from behind, her face flushed. They arrived at the supermarket in under 10 minutes, dismounted, and Issei helped carry the bags. Their trip turned playful. They joked, teased each other, and even played a hide-and-seek game between the aisles. Issei playfully startled Asia, making her heart race, and she scolded him while laughing. After finishing the shopping, Issei carried 4 bags and refused to let Asia help. She offered again and he smilingly insisted on helping her. They mounted the motorcycle once more. Checking his watch, Issei realized it was past 1 in the afternoon and invited Asia to lunch. She was shy but agreed, and they rode to a pizzeria. They entered, took a table and ordered identical meals. While they ate they chatted. When Issei asked where Asia was staying, she explained that she was staying with a friend and laughed off the idea of staying at the church. The laugh sounded a little strained, but Issei did not push. About 20 minutes later they finished, paid, and carried their bags back toward the motorcycle when they saw a small boy crying a short distance away. They went over to him. The boy explained that he had fallen off his bicycle and scraped his knee. Asia crouched beside him and placed her hands gently on his injured knee. A soft green glow appeared around her hands and the wound closed quickly. Issei watched, surprised, while Drake quietly identified the ability as Twilight Healing, a sacred gear, and likened it to the boosted gear in function. The boy stood up as if the injury had never happened and thanked them in relief. A small boy thanked the blonde. Asia smiled and told him it was nothing. The boy took his bike and left. The brown-haired young man remained surprised and murmured that it was amazing. Asia apologized with a soft laugh for not having mentioned her ability, and the brown-haired man reassured her that it was fine. Asia offered to ride with him to his home, and he agreed. They walked to the motorcycle and mounted it. The brown-haired man asked for the address, and Asia gave it while holding on to him carefully. She was grateful for the helmet because she felt herself blushing. Asia guided him through the streets, and in less than 20 minutes they arrived at the house where she was staying. The brown-haired man sensed a presence nearby that vanished almost immediately. He felt alarmed but managed to mask it so that Asia did not notice. Asia thanked him as she removed her helmet and called him Issei. Issei smiled and said that friends were for helping each other. When Asia asked whether they were friends, he confirmed, and Asia beamed that she loved the idea. She hugged him warmly, surprising him. He quickly apologized for being carried away. Issei laughed and returned her smile, then carried her bags to the door. Asia gave him a tender smile, and Issei found her smile beautiful, which made his cheeks flush. He told her they would see each other again and climbed back onto the motorcycle. Asia kissed him on the cheek, then touched the door and turned for one last look, waving goodbye with a warm smile. Issei returned the smile, put on his helmet, started the bike, and rode away. A small smile stayed on his face for a moment, but it faded when the same presence he had felt earlier passed by again for a few seconds and then disappeared. Issei wondered who it could be and checked his watch. It was 2:15 p.m., still early in the afternoon. An inner voice asked what he planned to do while waiting for the red-haired girl. Issei thought he would explore the city alone, but since she would be helping him he was unsure and decided he would probably stroll around. The inner voice suggested buying a helmet, one for him and another for the red-haired girl. Issei considered giving his helmet to her and going without one, and the inner voice responded in exasperation at his reckless idea. Evening had fallen and the students were leaving the academy to go home. Rias, Akino, Kiba, and Kaneko were among them. Rias walked a little distracted, thinking about the conversation she had had that morning with the brown-haired boy. Akino asked when that boy had promised to arrive, and Rias replied that he had said he would come at dismissal but she could not see him and suspected he had forgotten. Akino said she had known he could not be trusted. Kiba folded his arms and watched with mild irritation. A motorcycle suddenly pulled up in front of them, appearing as if from nowhere. When the rider took off his helmet, it was Issei. The girls brightened and the other boys watched with envy. Issei apologized for being late to Rias, and Rias answered that she was surprised to see him. He invited her to get on, and she climbed onto the bike behind him. Issei handed her a helmet and told her to wear it in case anything happened. She hesitated briefly and then put it on. Issei reassured the others that she would be fine and that he would not allow anything to happen to her. Akino warned him that he had better mean it, and Kiba warned him not to lose again, a remark that made Issei bristle with irritation and then laugh. Issei asked Kaneko if the attack from earlier had hurt her badly. Kaneko, surprised at his concern, said she was fine and a little nervous. Issei offered a brief apology if he had caused her great harm, which left Kaneko stunned. Akino and Kiba were both surprised and a little put out that Issei had not apologized to them. Issei asked where they should go first. Rias suggested investigating the abandoned houses, explaining that stray demons often linger there. When Issei asked what stray demons were, Rias promised to explain once they arrived. Issei told Rias to hold on tight, and she placed her hands on his shoulders. He started the bike and they rode out of the academy, traveling through City in an awkward silence as each tried and failed to find something to say. After a few minutes they reached their first destination, a derelict house with broken windows, cracked walls, and no door. Rias commented that the place looked worse than Issei's old home. Drake manifested as a gem in Issei's left hand and made a snide remark, startling Rias. Issei introduced Drake to Rias, and Rias returned the greeting while still a little unsettled. Drake complained about being compelled to think about Rias, and Issei sharply told the dragon to be quiet. Rias blushed slightly at Drake's words. After a few minutes of bickering the mood calmed and Drake fell silent. Issei apologized for the commotion, and Rias smiled and said it was all right. They entered the abandoned house together and found torn pictures, smashed furniture, signs of a violent struggle, and two bodies. Both were shocked by the scene, and they moved carefully through the rooms. Rias asked what a rogue demon was, and Issei began to explain. He said rogue demons were those who rebelled against their masters. Rias seemed unsure about the idea of masters, and Issei replied that Drake had taught him some basics about demons, fallen angels, dragons, and even yokai. He added that demons and angels could reincarnate people and change their nature, and that demons use something called evil pieces to do so. Rias reached into her bag and pulled out pieces that looked like chess tokens. Issei noted that they resembled chess pieces, and Rias explained that those pieces could be used to turn someone into a demon. Issei reflected on how strange the world was, and they returned their focus to the task at hand, dealing with stray demons before they went out of control. As they continued to investigate, Issei asked Rias why others were searching for him. Rias said that her brother had told her that Security was an extremely powerful and dangerous being. Some wanted to kill him, while others wanted to have him on their side. Issei remarked that she could see for herself now that not all demons were bad. Rias responded that Issei was one in a million and that most of the demons she had encountered had only made her life harder, which explained his guarded attitude. An awkward silence settled between them until they both sensed two demon presences nearby. Rias confirmed that she felt them and said that one was hidden on the ground floor and the other was on the second floor. Issei volunteered to go upstairs and try to finish quickly with the one there so he could help Rias. He climbed the stairs and, through a window, watched the sun begin to set. The upper floor showed more destroyed furniture and dark stains on the floor and walls. Issei crouched, inspected one of the stains, and found it to be dry. He then heard a laugh and the sound of footsteps behind him. He turned and saw nothing, then heard the footsteps again and stood still, trying to be ready. A deranged voice declared that it had him, and a figure lunged with a knife, aiming for Issei's back. Issei sensed the presence and knew its intentions. He smiled, turned quickly, and grabbed the demon by the wrist. He saw the knife and took in the demon's decrepit face, a long gray beard, filthy skin, and ragged clothes. Issei called the demon pathetic. The demon asked how Issei had known his intentions. Issei said it was an old trick. The demon threatened that Issei would die, showing a crooked, yellow tooth with a psychopathic grin. Issei grimaced in disgust, and Drake agreed in his mind. Issei released the demon and kicked him in the stomach. The demon staggered a few meters and fell, but immediately sprang back up and lunged at Issei. He threw wild punches, but Issei dodged them easily. When the demon tried to stab Issei, Issei moved behind him in an instant, then laughed at how slow the demon had been and struck him in the face. The demon fell and dropped his knife, touched his nose in pain, and grimaced. Issei grabbed him by the shirt and lifted him to eye level to demand answers. Issei accused the demon of killing the boy they had found earlier. The demon asked Issei to be more specific and said he had killed many people in his life. Issei glared at the discarded knife and then slammed the demon down hard, seizing the blade. He put a hand to the demon's throat and began to strangle him, forcing him to answer with yes or no about the killing. The demon denied it, insisting he had not done it. Issei tightened his grip and threatened further if the demon refused to speak. He pressed the knife against the demon's clothing as a clear warning, provoking a howl of pain from the demon. The demon stammered and tried to explain that he was not the culprit and swore he had not been the one. He also denied leaving the note that had been found at the scene, then froze in fear when he recognized Issei as Security. Issei demanded again who had done it. The demon, trembling, insisted he did not know and swore it. Issei calmed down and released his hold on the demon's throat, withdrawing the knife from where he had pressed it. The demon begged for his life, pleading that he had been told he would not be killed if he talked. Issei clarified that he had only said it was possible he would not kill him, not promised it. He brought the knife up close to the demon's throat and admitted, with a cold smile, that he wanted to kill him. Rias, Akino, Kiba, and Kaneko were in the club as usual, seated on the sofas in their customary arrangement. Rias and Akino on one, Kiba on another, and Kaneko on the third. They chatted about how their day had gone, an ordinary exchange, but Rias remained a little distracted, thinking about the brown-haired young man. Kiba mentioned the news about a boy who had been killed. Akino asked if he meant that case, and Kiba confirmed while sipping tea. Kaneko asked whether it was for the usual reason, and Kiba answered that it was connected to the Security. Akino, clearly irritated, declared that she hated that person and promised that the next time she encountered him she would confront him fiercely so he would think twice about meddling with them. They heard a knock at the door and turned to see who it was. Rias stood to open the door and found Sona Citri there. Sona informed Rias that a boy wanted to enroll and called for Hayudo to come in. Earlier, a few minutes before that arrival, Issei had been with Rias. Rias had helpfully finished off the wandering demon, and now she waited for Issei. After some distant shouts that fell suddenly silent, she heard footsteps and turned to see Issei standing there after the confrontation. His weapon and clothing bore the traces of the fight, but he appeared calm. Issei told Rias that he had dealt with the wandering demon, and Rias, surprised, said she did not want to know the details of how he had done it. Issei tossed his knife into the wall and suggested they leave. Rias agreed. They stepped out of the abandoned house into the early evening. The sun was already sinking, but they did not dwell on it and climbed onto Issei's motorcycle. Rias put on her helmet and rested her hands on Issei's shoulders. Issei offered to use a magic circle to teleport her home, and Rias asked why he did not. Issei admitted that he had enjoyed being with her, which made him blush, and he fell silent. They rode on. After some time, Rias spotted the moonlight and remembered a recent argument with her parents. She asked Issei if they could stop at the park so she could rest, and he agreed. They parked and walked through the park until they sat on the grass. Rias looked down and said she had come to the park simply to walk, but then she opened up about something heavier. She asked what Issei would do if someone forced her to do something she did not want and would not allow her any say. Issei thought for a moment and said that, honestly, he would walk away from someone who forced him, that he would not want to see that person again. Rias pressed further, asking what he would do if the person was important to her. Issei admitted he was not sure he was the best person to answer, but he believed that someone truly important to him would never intentionally take away his freedom. Rias revealed that it was her parents forcing her and that they wanted to decide her future. Issei said that while parents often want the best for their children, controlling their lives crossed a line. Rias said she had told them so, but they had not listened. Everything was already arranged. Issei suggested telling her parents that it was her life and she would choose her own path, but Rias sighed that it was not that simple because things were already set in motion. Issei expressed frustration at the situation and said he would have liked to meet her parents to talk to them, prompting Rias to clarify she only wanted them to understand her perspective. Issei laughed and Rias smiled gently. They shared a warm, friendly moment, and Rias confessed that she liked him. Issei, surprised, admitted he felt the same way. He had expected to be hunting demons but had found a friend who was a demon instead. Rias joked that she would try not to let him get the chance to harm her, and they both laughed. They discussed whether they would continue to explore the city together. Issei agreed that he liked the idea. Rias stood and asked whether he could now take her home, smiling softly. Issei stood as well. For a few minutes they simply looked at each other, both feeling something new and a little awkward. Issei, a little flushed, suggested they leave since it was getting late, and Rias, also blushing, agreed. They rode away on Issei's motorcycle toward Rias's home. 2 weeks later. A couple of weeks had passed since Issei arrived in Ko, and he had finally adjusted to his new life. He stayed busy. By day he spent time with Asia doing ordinary things like going to the park, eating out, and shopping. He enjoyed those moments with her, though he sometimes sensed the presence of fallen angels without ever seeing them. He refused to let that ruin his time with Asia. In the afternoons he spent time with Rias, and their friendship had deepened considerably. Issei routinely picked Rias up from the academy and they hunted demons and fallen angels together. Most of the time they succeeded in finding and neutralizing threats, and Issei often asked Rias questions about demons. Flashback. One evening Issei and Rias walked the streets of Ku on another patrol. It was their 10th outing searching for stray demons and fallen angels. They had checked several houses already but had not found anything dangerous. Issei asked Rias how she had those chess pieces that could turn others into demons. Rias responded by asking why he was curious and whether he wanted to become a demon. Issei made it clear he did not, and that he was simply curious why only some people had the pieces. Rias explained that only high-class demons could possess those pieces. She then spent some time explaining how the evil pieces worked, repeating and clarifying details until Issei finally understood after several attempts. Issei admitted that he was not as dense as she had joked. They stopped walking when they sensed a demon nearby. Both looked around but could not see anything. Rias asked whether Issei knew where it might be. Issei said he did not, only that he felt it close. After a moment Issei suggested they ignore the presence, which left Rias a little disappointed, but she trusted him and followed. Minutes later the presence moved toward them and then they heard a scream. Issei told Rias to move a few meters to her left. Rias obeyed and managed to avoid an attack from the demon, which had lunged with a knife. The demon stumbled and fell face down. Issei fixed the demon with a cold look and the gem that marked his power appeared briefly in his left hand. He cracked his knuckles in a menacing way and said they did not need to use their full powers this time. The demon became visibly frightened. Rather than inflicting brutal harm, Issei acted with swift, precise movements in an anime-like, non-graphic manner. He restrained and disarmed the demon, delivering a decisive finishing maneuver that left the threat neutralized and unable to continue. Rias watched in shock. Although she had seen Issei act before, she still felt surprised by his method for ending encounters with demons and fallen angels. Issei said he was finished, and Rias, uncomfortable but relieved, agreed that they should leave. They walked away together. In flashback, during the last 2 days they had found nothing, so to pass the time they would go to a park and talk. Spending so much time together had made both Issei and Rias feel a little strange. Their hearts beat faster around each other and they increasingly thought about one another. It was clear that deeper feelings were developing between them. Rias asked Issei things that made him feel nervous at times, and their bond continued to grow. In the end, Rias and Issei went to the park again because they had not found a single demon or fallen being that day, so they decided to take a short walk and chat as they arrived. Issei admitted that he had left his motorcycle behind because he had forgotten it. He explained that he had been tired that morning after someone had kept him talking in the park until 2 in the morning, and he looked at Rias as he said it. Rias looked away with a small smile and wondered who that person could be. Issei responded with a mock-angry look, and then both of them laughed quietly at the thought. Issei added with sarcasm that there was no sign that he had slept little. After a few minutes they reached the park and sat on 2 adjacent swings. Rias began to swing while Issei watched her with a small smile. Issei thought she was very beautiful and felt his cheeks warm with a blush. Rias then asked if she could ask him a few questions. Issei told her to take advantage of the time before night fell. Rias considered her question for a moment and then asked where he had lived all that time. The question brought back years of memories for Issei, the time in the forest with Kuroka and Chiron. A nostalgic smile appeared on his face as he explained that he had lived for 8 years in a forest. Rias found the story hard to believe, calling it strange, but Issei insisted it was true and suggested she could ask Drake. The dragon's presence manifested as a gem on Issei's arm. The jewel spoke, asking if its presence had been requested. Issei noted that Drake was always attentive. Rias called the dragon by name, and the gem confirmed that Issei had indeed lived in the forest for 8 years. The dragon then asked if they had any more questions, and Issei declined, thanking the dragon before the gem's light faded. Rias asked with curiosity who Issei had been living with during those years. Issei spoke of the 2 girls who had been like family to him but did not specify whether they had been sisters or not. Rias wanted clarification about that detail. Issei remembered the day Chiron had been taken by demons, and his expression grew serious as he recounted the event. He explained that Chiron had been captured when she was 12 and that he and the other girl had been 14 at the time. He sighed and spoke in a more melancholic tone. Rias asked what had happened to the other girl. Issei recalled how she had become his partner and how they had trained together for the next 2 years to grow stronger while trying not to dwell on the loss. Then, a few months earlier, demons had attacked, injuring and capturing her as well. Issei clenched his fists and his anger began to surface. He described how they had been taken away. Rias expressed her sympathy. Issei said that he had vowed to do something for her. When Rias asked what he meant, he declared that he would find Chiron at any cost and would do everything possible to locate her. A tear fell from his cheek as he stood, his frustration and grief rising. He blamed himself for not being able to save her and feared what might have happened after the capture. His aura flared slightly with the intensity of his emotion. Rias was shocked by Issei's state and called his name, urging him to calm down. She stood and took his hand. Issei felt the comfort of her concern in her expression, and seeing her caring face helped him begin to calm down. He apologized quietly for losing control. Issei apologized in a calmer tone for having behaved that way. Rias responded that it was her fault for asking and suggested they change the subject. Issei smiled at Rias, and she felt herself blush. He then asked what she wanted to talk about. Rias asked how he put up with the other boys he spent time with. Issei explained that once one gets to know them, they are not bad people. They had all experienced very sad things, and he cared for them deeply as friends. Rias prompted him for examples, and Issei began to explain. Issei said that Akino had lost her mother and had a difficult relationship with her father. Rias recognized Aquino as the girl with lightning and said that sounded awful. Issei agreed. Rias then asked about the blonde and the small girl. Issei explained that Kiba had been killed and that Issei had revived him, but he preferred not to discuss the details. He added that Kiba hated holy swords and that, despite that, he was an excellent swordsman though not strong at close-quarters combat. Rias teased that they did not need to be reminded of how she had defeated them, and Issei laughed quietly that it had not been his intention. When Issei began to tell Rias about Kaneko, he sighed at the memory. He said that her story was harsher than the others. Rias asked how serious it was. Issei recalled finding Kaneko in an alley, scared at first but accepting his help. He thought to himself that the memory reminded him of when he had run away from home. He told Rias that Kaneko said she had been captured by the Chaos Brigade, an organization determined to destroy the other factions at any cost. They had tried to force her to work for them, but she refused and escaped, spending months living on the streets. When Issei found her, she had bruises, dirty clothes, and tears in her eyes. He said she rarely spoke of her family and claimed they were dead, which explained her distant demeanor. Issei said she showed few emotions and that he wished she did not carry such walls. Rias said she only needed time and that she understood suffering. Issei agreed that time was the only thing that could help. As the sun set, both Issei and Rias realized two things. It was already getting dark and they were still holding hands. The first did not bother them, but the second embarrassed them both, and they fumbled apologies. Each felt awkward and glanced away briefly, then met each other's eyes and simply admired one another. Rias thought Issei was very handsome, and Issei thought Rias was beautiful. Both felt their hearts beating faster. Draig, feeling impatient, urged Issei to act, and Issei told Draig to leave him alone. Issei gently took Rias's hand and cupped her cheek, bringing their faces closer. Rias, feeling bold, resolved that her life was hers to live and placed her hands on his shoulders, leaning in. She asked him to be quiet and leaned forward, and Issei responded by giving her a soft, shy kiss. The kiss lasted only a few seconds. They separated with smiles, both happy and a little surprised by the feeling. Night had fully fallen. Issei, still blushing, offered to walk Rias home, and she agreed. They walked quietly, thinking about the kiss and smiling at one another, unaware that someone watched them from a distance. After about an hour they reached Rias's house. Rias knocked, and Aquino opened the door, surprised to see Issei since he normally left on his bike. Aquino greeted Rias with a smile. Rias returned it. Aquino addressed Issei in a curt manner, and Issei awkwardly looked away to avoid a tense conversation. Rias sighed at the friction between them. Rias and Issei were asked how their search had gone. They looked at each other, remembered their kiss, and smiled, which left Aquino confused. Rias quickly said they had encountered a fallen angel to explain their mood. Aquino announced that dinner was ready, and Rias thanked her and prepared to go inside. Rias thanked Issei for bringing her and said she had enjoyed the evening. Issei returned the sentiment and said he had enjoyed their time together as well. They hugged briefly. Seeing them, Aquino assumed Issei was leaving and went back inside to set the table. Once Aquino was out of sight, Rias and Issei shared a brief, gentle kiss, then separated and exchanged one last smile before going inside. They said goodnight and went in. Rias asked if they would see each other tomorrow, smiling broadly. Issei returned the smile and told Rias they would, and then he said goodbye and left. Rias entered the house and sat on the couch with a wide smile. Aquino, Kiba, and Kaneko noticed and grew curious about their friend's good mood. Aquino asked if something interesting had happened. Rias replied that it was nothing, only that it had been satisfying to defeat that fallen angel. Kiba then said they could have dinner now. The four went to the dining room where the meal was already served, ate, and shared stories about their day at school. After dinner, the four watched television together until a magic circle appeared in the middle of the living room. From it stepped a striking woman in a maid outfit with long silver hair and blue eyes. Rias recognized her and named her Graphia, surprised. Graphia requested to speak with Rias privately. Rias agreed, though Graphia's insistence on privacy made Rias uneasy. Rias asked her friends to leave, and the three agreed, each going to their own room and leaving Rias and Grafia alone in the living room. Rias offered Grafia something to drink, and Grafia declined, saying she would not be long. Grafia then asked where Rias had spent the afternoon. Rias explained that she had been out searching for wandering demons. Grafia inquired who had accompanied her, and Rias grew nervous and asked why Grafia wanted to know. Grafia produced a photograph and handed it to Rias. Rias was shocked to see the picture. It showed her and Issei alone together. She wondered how Grafia had obtained it, while Grafia regarded her with a serious expression and asked why she had been with him. Rias began to answer. Rias did not know how to respond. Grafia reminded her that she had a commitment to her parents and could not disappoint them. Rias insisted that her parents never listened and that she wanted to make her own choices. It was her life and she would live it as she wished. Her voice rose with frustration. Grafia promised not to tell Rias's parents or her brother, but she demanded a promise that Rias would stop seeing that boy. Rias tried to protest, but Grafia interrupted and said she would speak to the boy to keep him from causing trouble. Rias reacted with anger, declaring the situation unfair. Grafia attempted to calm her, and Rias begged her not to tell him. She did not want him to stop seeing her and she did not want to stop seeing him. Grafia asked what Rias proposed. Rias, desperate and unwilling to lose the only boy she liked, decided she would end the relationship and tell him they should be just friends. Grafia sighed and accepted the plan. Grafia asked whether Rias would keep her promise. Rias replied affirmatively, her tone sad. Grafia formed a magic circle, said farewell, and vanished, leaving Rias alone. Rias felt overwhelmed by sadness. She went to her room and could not hold back her tears. Her friends heard her and grew very worried. Flashback. Rias and Issei were walking through the park. This time they did not encounter a stray demon or a fallen angel and took the opportunity to talk. Rias, unsure what to say, asked Issei if he had a girlfriend and then mentally chastised herself for asking. Issei looked confused and a little uncomfortable and asked what had prompted the question. Rias said it was nothing and wondered whether she should tell him. Drake, speaking quietly inside Issei's gem, advised him to keep it to himself since he had only known the girl for about a month. Issei asked what Drake suggested, and Drake told him to simply say no and wait until time allowed him to explain. Issei teased Drake about becoming an advisor, and Drake replied that one did not need to be clever to give that kind of counsel. Issei apologized for taking so long to answer. Rias said not to worry. Issei admitted he did not have a girlfriend. Rias felt nervous when she asked but allowed herself a small hope at his answer. Drake muttered that neither of them realized they liked each other and commented on youths these days. Both continued walking feeling somewhat awkward but decided to move on and talk about other things. And flashback. Issei walked home wearing a wide smile while his emotions felt tangled. He was elated by the kiss with Rias but could not stop thinking about Kuroka. She remained difficult to forget. The familiar gem appeared in his left hand as usual, and Drake congratulated him on his performance. Issei wondered if Drake really thought so. Drake admitted he had expected Issei to separate them and tell Rias they were in the wrong. Issei explained he had acted for two reasons. The first was that he had thought about Drake's advice from weeks before and believed it was right that he should not become attached to a single person. Drake pointed out there was a problem with that reasoning that they both understood. Issei confessed he could not stop thinking about Kuroka and still held out hope he would find her. He did not know what he would do if he did. Drake asked what the second reason was. Issei admitted that Rias intrigued him greatly. Drake had briefly thought Issei might be drawn to Asia, since Issei spent a lot of time with her. Issei said he liked Asia but they had agreed to remain friends, and she had proven herself to be someone who cared for him. Drake agreed. After their conversation, Issei reached his house and noticed an envelope lying at the front door. He crouched to pick it up and opened it. When he read the letter, he could not believe its contents and let the note fall to the ground. Determined, he set off running toward a familiar place. When Drake asked what he would do, Issei answered that he was going to save Asia. A few days earlier, Asia and Issei had just left the cinema after watching a horror movie. Issei had not been frightened at all, but Asia trembled and clung to his arm. Issei could not help but laugh softly at her reaction and asked if the movie had really scared her, suppressing his amusement. Asia replied that it had been terrifying and asked whether he had not been scared at all as she held on tighter. Issei teased her that she had nearly thrown away all the popcorn in her fright and admitted he had wanted to eat more. Asia pouted and insisted the movie had been too scary. Issei wondered why her screams had been so high-pitched if the film had only been frightening. Asia sulked and told him not to blame her, then said she was surprised he had not been scared since he was the only one who had stayed calm. Issei looked at the other people leaving the theater and saw they had indeed been frightened, which made him laugh even more for several minutes until tears formed and he wiped them away. Asia scolded him for being mean and looked away. Issei apologized through laughter but found the situation too funny to suppress. He then asked what he could do to be forgiven. Asia thought for a moment and then suggested they go to an ice cream parlor. Issei was surprised that the request was so simple and agreed, provided that he would pay for everything she ordered. At the ice cream shop, the brown-haired boy, Issei, saw that Asia had 2 ice cream cones, a large tub of ice cream, and 8 popsicles, 5 chocolate and 3 strawberry. Issei reacted with surprise at the sheer amount. Asia confirmed she would order all of it and reminded him that he would pay. Issei refused at first, insisting he would not pay as an apology. Asia put on a sweet, pleading pout that made him relent. Issei admitted he could not say no to that face and agreed to pay. The dragon Draig's voice in his head reminded him that he always fell for that trick. Issei remembered similar times when he had been persuaded to help others and conceded that Draig was right. After Issei paid, Asia shared the treats with him. They finished eating and decided to go to Asia's house. A few hours later, Issei thanked Asia for inviting him to the movie and said he still thought a comedy would have been better, though he had enjoyed himself. Asia returned his smile and they hugged. After a brief moment they separated and Issei left for home. Asia's cheerful expression faded. She entered her house and found 3 people. Inside, 2 women and a man. The man, a middle-aged figure with black hair, dark blue eyes, a white shirt, black pants and shoes, a gray trench coat, and a black hat, demanded to know what was happening. Asia avoided answering. The man gripped her upper arm firmly to silence her. Asia tried to pull away but the man was stronger. One of the women, with long navy blue hair, brown eyes, wearing a maroon blouse, a white undershirt, a matching miniskirt, and black heels, told the man to let Asia go. The man, Donasik, glared at her. He explained that Asia was connected to a dragon, the Securudii, and that one of their missions was to eliminate that dragon. The blue-haired woman, Calawarner, urged patience and insisted the plan must proceed in due time. Donasik pressed for faster action, mentioning that if they delayed someone might die, as had happened to Rainier. Calawarner dismissed Rainier's importance in the moment and emphasized following the plan exactly. Donasik hesitated, then released Asia. The third woman, Middled, a blonde wearing a black dress with white accents, thigh-high white stockings, and black shoes, escorted Asia to a bedroom. As the 2 moved away, Donasik muttered that he looked forward to dealing with Asia and the dragon. Calawarner answered that their objective would be accomplished in a few days. Present time. Issei had been running for more than half an hour when he reached Asia's house. He pounded on the door as hard as he could and called out her name, then kicked. The door gave way under his kick and a hole appeared. He hoped no one had seen him, then formed a small ball of energy and launched it at the door. The blast caused a dramatic anime-style explosion and a cloud of smoke that lingered for a few seconds before clearing. Draig expressed surprise at the scale of the reaction. Issei reminded Draig that such force had been necessary 8 years ago, and Draig accepted the point. Issei entered the house through the wrecked doorway and found the rooms in disarray from the blast. He searched the kitchen, bathroom, and bedrooms on both floors, but there was no sign of anyone. Frustrated, he returned to the living room and noticed a letter among the debris. He picked it up and read it quietly. The note said they had taken the nun and planned to extract her sacred gear, and it warned the dragon to find them quickly if he wanted to see her alive again. Shocked, Issei tossed the letter aside and wondered where they could have taken Asia. Issei considered alleys, abandoned factories, and empty houses, but none felt right. Draig, growing impatient with the list of possibilities, suggested the church. The idea struck Issei and his hope returned. He praised Draig for the suggestion, and Draig brusquely told him to stop praising and go. Issei ran toward the church just as rain began to fall. Issei had just arrived at the church. He stopped in front of the entrance and stared up at the massive doors, which towered over him by more than 4 meters. He sighed and kept repeating to himself that he could not allow Asia to be killed. This was his only chance and he would never forgive himself if he failed. Rain fell across his face, soaking his hair and clothes, but it did not matter. Asia was all he could think about, and he moved toward the doors with determination. He kicked the doors open and was immediately met by 2 girls. The blue-haired girl observed that they had a guest. Issei asked where Asia was. The blonde replied that if he wanted to see her he would have to defeat them. Issei cracked his knuckles and said he had no problem. Both girls revealed fallen angel wings. Kalawarner and Middlet announced their readiness. Middlet created a spear and launched it at Issei, but he dodged with ease. He reflected on a fallen angel who had once killed Rainier and recalled that he had dealt with her himself. Middlet reacted with surprise at the suggestion that he had been responsible, and Issei downplayed it with a cold remark. The 2 girls exchanged a glance and moved to attack. Middlet attempted a sweeping move to knock Issei down, but he avoided it. Kalawarner struck his stomach, forcing him back a few meters. Issei looked at Kalawarner without expression. She taunted him, but his steady stare made her uncomfortable. Someone approached Issei quickly and aimed for his face. He closed his eyes, smiled, and caught the attacker's fist. He realized it was Middlet, turned her head, and opened his eyes to see the blonde's angry face. He mocked her and grabbed her by the neck, warning her not to intervene. He threw her several meters. She slammed into a wall and fell unconscious. Kalawarner called him a BSRD and warned she would not make things easy. She formed a whip and lashed it around Issei's right arm. He took hold of the rope with his other hand and snapped it. Kalawarner, furious, moved in to strike, but Issei blocked her attacks effortlessly. He landed a solid blow to Kalawarner's abdomen that stole her breath and brought her to her knees. He summoned a gauntlet glove on his left arm and leveled it at her head, demanding the location of Asia. Kalawarner balked at first, then tried to warn him not to underestimate her. Issei could feel anger rising and his gauntlet began to hum with energy. Middlet reappeared from behind, charging with a sword aimed at his chest. Issei caught the blade with the gauntlet and shattered it, leaving only a small sliver of metal. Middlet stammered in disbelief. Issei took Middlet by the throat again, his patience wearing thin. He tightened his grip until she struggled and gasped, clutching her neck as she tried to free herself. Expecting him to relent, Middlet began to hope she might survive, but Issei kept the gauntlet trained on her and spoke coldly that fallen angels had to die. He unleashed a powerful burst of concentrated energy from the palm of his gauntlet. The crimson-charged blast struck Middlet in a dramatic, anime style. Flash. She screamed in agony as the energy overwhelmed her and left her motionless on the ground. Issei turned his gaze away from the scene, refusing to look. Kalawarner froze in terror as she watched what had happened to her companion. Issei noted that one of them might try to pull him by the hair and used that possibility to press for an answer. Terrified, Kalawarner revealed that Asia was behind a door at the end of the hallway on the right and begged him not to kill her. Issei contemplated the information, weighing his options. After a moment of thought, he struck Kalawarner in the head, rendering her unconscious, and declared that he had decided her fate. He left her lying and moved down the hallway she had indicated. He opened the door at the end and could hardly believe what he saw. A man with a wide smile, and behind him there was an army of more than 30 exorcists, 35 to be exact, surrounded them, but Issei hardly noticed the numbers. He was in shock when he saw Asia chained to a cross. The brown-haired young man was furious at what they were doing to her. Asia spoke weakly that she was glad he had come. Issei tried to move toward her, but the exorcists in front of him took combat stances and held him back. The man who had been approaching introduced himself as Donasik and explained that Asia possessed a sacred gear they coveted, the Twilight Healing. He said their plan was to perform a ritual to extract it and claim it for themselves. Danasik added that she would die once they took it and that she had been used to draw out the security, which, he believed, meant Issei would be theirs. Asia, with tears in her eyes, insisted that she had not wanted to do this and that she had been threatened. She had kept Issei's existence and their connection secret to protect him. Issei's anger rose. His aura manifested, a blood-red energy gathering around him. He charged his gauntlet and fired a more powerful energy sphere aimed at Danasik. Danasik dodged, and the blast struck several exorcists, knocking them out or otherwise neutralizing them. The number of active exorcists fell to 27. Danasik declared that Issei would not be allowed to save Asia and ordered the exorcists to attack. They rushed him with swords, but Issei dodged, shattered blades with his gauntlet, and struck back with controlled bursts of power. He moved with speed and precision learned from Draig's training, dispatching groups of attackers and sending others flying. He even took a fallen exorcist's sword and continued fighting, holding his own despite not being a master of bladed combat. Issei glanced at Asia and saw her body beginning to glow green, her hands especially bright. Danasik spoke in a macabre tone that the process was finally happening. Draig warned that if they removed the twilight healing, she would die. Issei refused to accept that. His aura flared fully, and the exorcists recoiled in fear. Issei moved so quickly and fiercely that he overwhelmed them one by one, defeating them decisively and leaving them incapacitated across the floor. When the last of the attackers fell, Issei stood with grim determination, focused only on saving Asia. Danasik struck first, landing a heavy blow that sent Issei to the ground and caused his aura to fade. Danasik taunted him while kneeling. Issei recovered quickly, delivered a crushing kick that left Danasik reeling and momentarily unconscious, then sprinted toward where Asia would fall. 2 rings of light emerged from Asia's glowing hands and detached, carrying the same green radiance. As the rings left her, her glow faded, the chains released, and she began to fall. Issei reached her and caught her in his arms. He held her desperately, hoping she would be all right. Asia, with a small, tired smile, expressed gratitude to Issei and apologized for causing him trouble. She told him he had been the kindest person to her and that she wished they could have had more time together. Issei, tears streaming, vowed that she would be okay and promised to protect her. Asia managed a final, peaceful smile and then took her last breath. Issei realized with growing horror that she was not moving, that her pulse was gone. He sank to his knees with her in his arms and begged that it not be true, sobbing and calling her name. A sound of something dropping reached him. Issei set Asia down and turned toward the noise. On the ground lay 2 glowing rings, the twilight healing. Draig noted the rings with surprise. Issei fell to his knees and took the rings into his hands. Issei wondered if placing the rings back on Asia's hands might bring her back to life. Danasik replied that he wished it were so, but once a bearer dies nothing can restore them, unless they reincarnate as a demon or an angel. Issei, stricken, slammed his fist into the ground, his voice breaking as he demanded why he could not save her. Danasik laughed and taunted that Issei had failed. Issei called him miserable and the worst of all, his voice rising until Danasik turned to listen. Danasik told Issei to hand over the sacred gear of the nun. Issei refused outright. Danasik, provoked, sneered at the brat and threatened him. Issei answered that Danasik would have to kill him first. Danasik replied that it would be his pleasure to kill him so he could be with his friend. Issei thought of Asia and vowed that he would not forgive what had happened. His aura began to swell, far larger than before. He shouted that he would not forgive, his voice echoing as the aura expanded and the ground trembled. He clenched his fists so tightly his knuckles whitened and his palms ached. The presence around him grew brighter and more intense, and Danasik began to feel uneasy at what was unfolding. In the church, Danasik, Kalawarner, and Middle stood with a small army of exorcists. They stood so quietly that they could hear the rain striking the ground. After several minutes of silence, Danasik broke it with a macabre smile and announced that they would finally rid themselves of the nun. He looked up and saw Asia bound to a cross suspended more than 5 meters high on the wall. Her white dress was damaged from the struggle. Middle glanced at Asia and asked whether the dragon would come. Calawarner answered with a sadistic smile that it would, and everyone waited. After a few minutes, a great presence was felt, not that of a demon, nor of an angel, and not that of a fallen being, but the unmistakable presence of a dragon. Calawarner declared that it had arrived and began to laugh. Donaseek smiled broadly and instructed Middleton Calawarner to go and meet their guest. Both women returned the malicious smiles and moved toward the entrance. A few minutes earlier, events unfolded elsewhere. Rias sat in her room, trying to think of what to tell the brown-haired man so he would not leave, when Aquino entered and asked what was wrong. Aquino explained that she had been worried since Graffia's visit because Rias had been acting sad. Rias could not lie to Aquino. She was her best friend, like a sister, the person she trusted most. Rias began to speak about Issei but could not finish her sentence. A sudden strong presence and a small tremor filled the room. Rias recognized the presence immediately as Issei's. Kiba and Kaneko burst into the room. Kiba asked if she had felt it, and Rias confirmed it was Issei. Aquino, Kiba, and Kaneko were surprised, and Rias said that something was wrong and they needed to go. Aquino agreed and the four left Rias's house, heading toward the source of Issei's powerful presence. They met again at the church, where Issei had already fought and defeated Middleton, Calawarner, and an army of exorcists, but had failed to save Asia. He sat devastated, grief giving way to a hard, burning rage aimed at one person, Donaseek. Donaseek taunted him for his failure. Issei's sorrow turned into fierce anger and hatred, and he unleashed a powerful aura that caused the ground to tremble. Donaseek tried to approach, but the pressure from Issei's presence pushed him back each time. Issei's arms became sheathed in a red armor similar to the boosted gear, the gauntlets shining with emerald gems. A deep crimson aura surrounded him. His breathing was heavy, his hair partially obscured his face, and his right eye, marked by a scar, took on a strange, reptilian quality. Donaseek tried to mock him and claimed that despite Issei's altered appearance he was still no threat. Issei answered with a cold, unsettling grin and laughter that unnerved Donaseek. The fallen angel spun a spear to demonstrate his skill. Issei taunted him about the fallen angel's fondness for spears, and Donaseek retorted with a threat, reminding him of Asia. The mention of Asia hardened Issei's expression and fueled his rage. Donaseek lunged to stab him, but Issei caught the spear only inches from his body. Donaseek's bravado faltered when he saw Issei's icy look. Issei snapped the spear and struck Donaseek, sending him tumbling backward. Donaseek tried to stand but Issei was faster, driving him down with a stomp and a follow-up kick that left Donaseek reeling and clutching his face. Issei challenged him to fight instead of boasting. After a moment Donaseek rose, furious and wounded, and unfurled black wings to lift himself into the air. He fired bursts of energy at Issei, but Issei dodged and redirected the attacks so they struck the surrounding walls, sending rubble crashing down and leaving a large hole. Issei asked the dragon Drake how to rise into the air like Donaseek, and the dragon instructed him to use his wings. Following Drake's guidance, Issei flexed and lowered his shoulder blades, and 2 crimson dragon wings sprouted from his back. He smiled, surged upward, and matched Donaseek's altitude. Donaseek stared in shock as Issei rose. Issei returned a malevolent smile and prepared to continue the fight. Donaseek declared that his long existence had taught him many ways to defeat someone like Issei, and daggers appeared in each of his hands. Issei moved toward him, ready to end the confrontation. Rias and her friends arrived at the church and were surprised to find the doors open. Inside they discovered a body badly harmed by fire and another person unconscious. The 4 of them entered and saw a partially destroyed wall with rubble scattered across the floor. Aquino asked who could be capable of such an atrocity, her voice full of shock. Rias replied that she did not know as she scanned the scene. Kiba, drawing his sword, asked Rias if she was sure the boy they sought was here. Rias explained that his presence had guided them to this place, so he had to be nearby. They felt the presence again. One of the walls ruptured and 2 figures broke through, fighting in the air. They recognized one of the fighters as Issei, noting the armor on his arms, his wings, and the fierce red aura around him. Rias identified him in a low voice. Aquino remarked that Issei was reaching levels that were far from normal, and Kiba observed that it was no longer a surprise how easily he could defeat them. Kaneko simply expressed amazement. In the sky, Issei and Danasik clashed. Issei had the upper hand. He dodged attacks and countered with precise strikes and powerful energy blasts that pushed Danasik back. After several minutes, Danasik grew tired and tried to create a portal in the wall to escape, but Issei seized one of his wings and prevented it. Danasik turned to meet Issei's gaze and saw hatred reflected there. Issei demanded that Danasik fight and pulled him away from the portal, slamming him into a distant wall. The portal collapsed, and Issei pursued him, pausing only when he noticed Rias and her friends watching. Issei registered their presence in surprise. Danasik fired a burst that struck Issei's chest, but the attack did little. Issei stepped back and then saw Danasik among the rubble with his arm outstretched. Issei taunted that Danasik had been left weakened. When he approached, he found Danasik battered and barely able to stand. Danasik, struggling to speak, lamented Issei's actions. Issei answered with profound hatred, blaming Danasik for the death of his friend and for the harm done to others. He accused the fallen angels of using people for their own purposes. Danasik glanced toward the fallen figures and saw Kalawarner unconscious and the other victim destroyed by fire. Terrified, he realized the cost. Issei seized Danasik by the throat and slammed him against the wall again, declaring a terrible judgment. He released him and stepped back, charging a powerful blast in his left gauntlet. Issei, thinking only of his friend Asia, vowed that he would avenge her and let tears fall as he released the energy. The energy struck Danasik with overwhelming force, shattering the section of wall and blasting outward with a vast surge of power. When the energy dissipated, there was no sign of Danasik where he had stood, only remnants were carried away by the wind. Rias and the others who had witnessed the attack were left stunned. Issei lowered his arm and, though exhausted, went to the room where Asia lay. Rias followed him. Issei knelt before Asia's lifeless body, telling her that he had avenged her. He placed her sacred gear beside her and spoke aloud in grief over why this had happened. Rias approached, put a hand on his shoulder, and knelt beside him to offer comfort. Issei looked at Rias and she noticed that his eyes had turned green with a draconic pupil. He demanded to know why such beings existed, his voice filled with anger. Rias answered that she did not know and shared his sorrow. Issei clung to Rias and sobbed quietly as she returned the embrace, holding him as he mourned. Their companions watched with sadness, understanding what it meant to lose someone dear. As the moment passed, Issei's armor, aura, and altered eyes receded, returning him to his usual appearance. He looked again at Asia and said, in a weak voice, that she had not deserved this. Rias lifted her attention and listened as Issei explained that Asia had only wanted a normal life but had been manipulated by those fallen angels who sought her sacred gear. Rias noticed 2 rings beside Asia's body and realized that Asia had been the bearer of the twilight healing. She considered that there might be a way for Issei to see her again. Issei, still grieving, wished that none of this had ever happened. Issei released Rias and collapsed to the ground. Rias grew alarmed at what had happened to him. A gem appeared on Issei's arm, and its voice identified itself as Draig. Rias asked if that was the name because she could not remember. Draig reassured them that his partner was only exhausted from releasing so much power. Rias acknowledged that she understood. Draig then reminded her that she knew what she had to do. Rias looked at Issei, at Asia, and smiled, indicating that she knew. The brown-haired man woke from the dream and found himself in an unfamiliar room. He wondered where he was. He remembered the dream about Kuroka and tried to tell himself it had only been a dream. He sat on the bed, looked at his hands, touched his lips, and felt a heavy disappointment knowing that the reunion had been only a dream. The door opened and a red-haired woman entered. Rias explained that he had awakened. Issei asked where he was, and Rias told him that she had brought him the previous night when he had fainted. Issei remembered those moments from last night and looked down at the floor. Rias sat beside him and began to speak his name, but Issei interrupted, saying he was fine. Rias asked what had happened. Issei sighed and started to recount everything that had happened with Asia. Rias listened in surprise as he told the story. Issei said that was what had happened and that he wanted to forget it. He added that at least it was over, but he could not save her. Rias did not like to see Issei so depressed, so she took his hand. Issei was surprised by the gesture and realized how close they had become. He did not know what to say. Rias gently placed a hand on his cheek and gave him a brief, tender kiss on the forehead to calm him. Issei relaxed into the moment and felt reassured. When they separated, they rested their foreheads together and smiled. Rias invited him to come with her as a surprise. Issei asked where they were going, and Rias smiled and insisted it would be a pleasant surprise. He said he did not like surprises, and Rias asked him to trust her, placing her hand on his cheek again and asking him to go for her sake. Issei smiled, nodded, and agreed. They stood up and left the room. Rias apologized for not mentioning it earlier and explained that they were in her house. Issei was surprised by how large Rias's home was. They went down the stairs to the living room, where Issei froze in shock. Asia was alive and waiting there. Asia saw Issei, rushed to him, and hugged him. Issei had no words and returned the embrace while Rias and her friends watched the moving reunion. Aquino asked Rias if she thought she had made the right choice. Rias watched them and replied that only time would tell. Issei and Asia continued holding each other. Asia said she was glad to see him, and Issei said the same, admitting that he had thought the worst. Asia explained that she owed everything to Rias. Issei looked at Rias in confusion. Rias reminded him of the evil pieces. Issei recalled their previous conversation about how Rias used them and, putting the pieces together, realized that Asia had been reincarnated and was now a devil. Issei felt conflicted. He was relieved that Asia was alive but uneasy that she had become a devil. He thought that perhaps not all devils were bad. He smiled at Asia and thanked her. Asia returned the smile. Issei then gave Rias a grateful look and winked at her. Rias blushed and smiled. Rias said she had something important to explain. Issei asked what it was, uneasy about what he might hear. Rias explained that because she had reincarnated Asia with her evil pieces, Asia was now part of her team and would have to participate in missions with them. Issei asked if those missions involved killing. Rias answered that if the mission required it, they would have to face those duties. Issei did not seem pleased by the idea, and Rias noticed his reaction. She reassured him that Asia would be safe with her. Issei began to object, troubled by the thought, but the conversation was left hanging as everyone in the room considered what the future might bring. The brown-haired young man had his doubts. The redhead suggested they speak in private. Issei looked at Asia, then at Rias's friends, and finally back at Rias. He gave a small sigh before agreeing to go with her. Rias told him to follow, and they walked to a room. Issei was surprised at how large it was. His own room paled in comparison. A king-size bed with red sheets dominated the space, along with a large wardrobe, a 42-inch television mounted on the wall, and several photographs that appeared to be of Rias's family. Issei asked where they were, and Rias replied that it was her room. He felt uncomfortable and assumed she had brought him to talk about Asia. Rias smiled and said he was clever. Issei thought it was simple logic and asked why she doubted he wanted Asia on missions with them. Rias adopted a more serious tone and called his name, but Issei insisted he did not have doubts. Rias did not seem convinced and gave him a stern look. Realizing he could not persuade her with half-truths, Issei decided to tell the truth. He admitted he was afraid something might happen to Asia and that he did not want a repeat of the past. Rias stepped closer, took Issei's hands, and looked him in the eyes. She acknowledged that she might not be able to convince him completely, but asked him to believe that Asia would be safe with her and to trust her. Issei asked what guarantee he had. Rias explained that she had not turned him into a demon when he was unconscious and had the chance. She had chosen not to because she knew he would not want to live that way. Draig told Issei in his mind that Rias was right. Issei then asked Draig if he could trust her. Draig replied that the decision was his. Issei thought for a few seconds and finally made his decision. He chose to trust Rias and hoped she would protect Asia. Rias smiled broadly and reassured him. Issei returned the smile and asked what time it was. Rias glanced at a clock on the nightstand beside her bed and noted that it was 3:32 a.m. Issei said he thought it better to leave so as not to be a bother. Rias suggested he stay instead. He hesitated. Rias worried that it would be very awkward for everyone, since her friends and she did not have the best relationship yet. Issei encouraged her to stay for the rest of the night, reminding her that they would have to leave for the academy later and that it was dangerous to go out at that hour. The brown-haired Issei smiled as he noticed how much Rias cared for him. He remembered it had been a long time since anyone had worried about him like that. Rias asked if he would stay. Issei agreed without hesitation. Rias brightened and hugged him, surprising him. Issei could only think how stunned he was. Rias pulled back, embarrassed, and apologized for getting carried away. Issei thought her reaction had been sweet. He reached out and placed a hand on her cheek in a warm, reassuring gesture, as if to comfort her, but they were interrupted by a knock at the door. Aquino stood there, looking nervous and saying that Rias had visitors. Rias grew confused and began to think who could be at the house at that hour. She settled on the conclusion that only one person she disliked could come at such a time. Issei watched her, unaware of the details of the situation. Rias asked Issei to stay while she went to see who it was. Issei thought Rias was acting strangely but did not press the issue and agreed to wait. Issei remained in Rias's large bedroom and noticed a small photo on a bedside table. He picked it up and saw Rias in the picture with two older people, a man with the same hair color and a brown-haired woman. They appeared much older than Rias, and Issei assumed they were her parents. He put the photo back on the table and tried to collect his thoughts. Inside him, the presence of Drake spoke, asking if he was okay. Issei admitted he was not sure. He felt calm and at the same time strange. He found it hard to explain. Sometimes remembering moments with his parents and then seeing himself in a mirror made him feel like a different person. Drake advised him to focus on the present, reminding him that this was his life. Issei sighed and accepted that he would have to keep adjusting. A sudden noise of something breaking drew Issei into the hallway. As he approached the living room, he overheard Rias shouting that she did not care what her parents said and that she would live her own life. He detected anger in her voice and moved closer, but hesitated when he heard a male voice mocking her, calling her naive and telling her that no matter what she did her parents would not accept it and that she should behave because they would meet again soon. An orange light appeared for a moment and then vanished. Aquino asked if Rias was okay. Rias sounded discouraged and said that she would go see Issei. When Rias entered the room, Issei was sitting on her bed. She lied that the visitor had been her sister-in-law and that she had merely warned of an upcoming family meeting. Issei did not believe her but did not press the issue. Rias offered for him to stay the night with her if he wanted. Issei declined for another time, kissed her cheek in a friendly gesture, and left the room, wishing her good night. Rias lay face down on the bed and told herself she had to tell him the truth tomorrow. Issei went to the living room to check on Asia and found her drinking tea with Aquino, Kiba, and Kaneko. He felt relieved to see her alive, and she smiled when she saw him. Asia asked if everything had been settled. Issei replied that it had and that she would need to be with them. Aquino told Asia that since Issei was there she could go with him or stay with them, whichever she preferred. Asia thanked Aquino and said she would like to stay with Issei if that was all right. Aquino agreed, and Issei suggested they could leave now. Asia finished her tea and prepared to go with him. Issei noticed Aquino and listened as she told him that tomorrow he would have to take Asia to the academy because she was now a demon and needed to be with their group. Issei responded awkwardly and called Asia. Asia stood from her chair and they headed to the entrance. Issei asked what time she had to be there, and Aquino requested it be before 7. Issei agreed and said they would see each other later. Issei and Asia left the house. They walked toward Issei's home, which would now also be Asia's. As they walked, Issei looked at Asia and asked how she felt. Asia returned a gentle smile and asked what he meant. Issei clarified that he meant how she felt about being a demon. Asia admitted it felt strange. She had always been a nun and did not know what to think. Issei then asked how she had met the fallen angels. Asia sighed and looked away before explaining that she had met them 2 years earlier, when there were 4 of them. A girl named Rainier had gained her trust, offered friendship, and invited her to her house, where Asia discovered the truth. They were searching for the Sekiryai, Issei. A tear escaped and Asia wiped it away. Issei put a hand on Asia's shoulder and asked if she had been unable to escape, and Asia shook her head to indicate she had not. Issei expressed relief that she was alive. The memory of the battle against Donasek returned to him and how he had not been able to save her, and those thoughts overwhelmed him. He wrapped Asia in a hug. Asia was surprised at first, but she steadied him with words that he had come for her and had fought for her. No one had shown so much concern, and she returned his embrace. Issei promised he would not allow anyone to hurt her. After a few moments they separated and prepared to leave so Asia could reach the academy in time. They continued on in a calmer mood, Issei feeling more at ease and Asia more secure. After several minutes they reached Issei's house. Issei unlocked the door and led Asia inside, showing her the rooms. Asia complimented the house and Issei told her it was also hers now, which made her blush. He offered that she could sleep in his room that night and said he would buy her a bed and some clothes the next day, since she was still wearing the same dress from the church. Asia asked about Issei's sleeping arrangements. He said he would be fine on the sofa. He reminded her to sleep soon because she needed to be at the academy early the next morning. Issei led Asia to his room and gave her a gentle, reassuring touch to the head before leaving. Asia blushed and thanked him, still unsure but comforted. Issei closed the door and went to the living room, where he lay down on the sofa. The gem appeared in his right hand and Draig's voice entered his mind. Draig commented that it had been quite a day and teased Issei about the moment with Asia, which made Issei think of Rias and Sai. Draig asked if something was wrong, and Issei explained that hearing Rias with another man had left him unsettled because she had not been honest with him. He wondered if she trusted him. Draig reminded him that a month earlier Issei had attacked Rias's group. Issei corrected that he had attacked the group, not Rias herself, and that it had happened a month ago. Now Rias apparently had a relationship with the man, which puzzled him. Draig suggested there must be an explanation. Issei decided he would speak with Rias about it, perhaps the next day when he went to fetch Asia. Draig agreed. Issei said he was tired and wanted to rest, and Draig teased him about his temper before the gem's glow faded and the presence in his hand disappeared. With Rias and the others, Issei woke with a startled cry and found himself in an unfamiliar place. He sat up and realized he was lying on a mattress inside a cabin he recognized. He wondered why he was there and felt confused. A female voice he recognized called his name. Issei assumed it was Kuroka and could not believe what was happening. Then Kuroka entered the cabin. A beautiful black-haired Nikomata in a white dress, her hair wet and her bare feet on the floor. Issei was happy to see her. Kuroka confirmed she was there with him. Issei stood, went to her, took her hands and stared at her. He told Kuroka that he had missed her in a hoarse voice. Kuroka said she felt the same and tried to hold back tears. Issei tried to explain all the crazy things that had happened to him, and Kuroka hushed him, telling him it was over and asking only for a hug. They embraced warmly. Then Issei remembered Rias and grew serious. Kuroka asked what was wrong, and Issei said he had something to tell her. The image of Rias came to his mind. At 7 a.m., Issei was being shaken awake. Asia was trying to rouse him. Issei muttered that he wanted to sleep a little longer, still half asleep and briefly thinking of Kuroka. Asia shouted his name, and Issei woke up startled and concerned. He asked Asia what was wrong, puzzled to see her looking calm. Asia reminded him they had to be at Ku Academy early. She told him to take a shower and that she had prepared breakfast. Issei, surprised, asked if she had already showered and made breakfast, and Asia confirmed she had. Issei said he would shower, change, and then take Asia to the academy on his motorcycle. Asia agreed. Issei showered quickly and, 5 minutes later, dressed. In a red shirt and black pants. He returned to the living room where Asia was waiting. He asked what time it was, and Asia said it was 7. Issei decided to go without breakfast and promised to eat later. Asia accepted and they left for Ku Academy. Issei and Asia arrived at the academy and got off the motorcycle. Asia asked if he knew where the others were. Issei replied that he thought so. It was not his first time coming there. They entered the academy, and a platinum-haired woman watched them from the back, remarking to herself that Rias never learned. Inside the clubroom, Rias waited with Aquino, Kiba, and Kaneko. Aquino asked whether bringing Asia in was a good idea. Rias said she trusted Asia, and Kiba and Kaneko listened. Aquino voiced her distrust of Issei, saying he did not seem trustworthy. Someone knocked at the door, and Rias called them in. Issei and Asia entered. Issei saw Rias and showed a serious expression that worried her. Rias pushed the thought aside and welcomed Asia. Asia thanked her politely and blushed when Rias asked her to call her simply Rias. Rias told Asia to change into her uniform, which was in the bathroom. Asia thanked Rias, and Issei smiled at Asia before telling her to go change. With Asia gone, Issei remained with Rias and the others. Rias asked how he had been. Issei admitted he had been stressed and asked if they could talk privately. Rias agreed. Aquino, annoyed, asked what he was up to and why he needed Rias's friend. Issei answered that it was a personal matter and insisted he would not harm Asia. Aquino warned that Issei would either speak in front of them or not speak to Asia at all. When Aquino teased that she was not jealous, Issei gave an arrogant smile and suggested that opposites attract, moving closer and implying Aquino might be worried about losing a chance with him. Aquino, flustered, pushed him lightly and stepped back. Rias signaled Issei to be quiet, but he lingered and made a teasing remark that left Aquino red-faced. Rias asked Aquino to calm down and said she would speak with Issei in private. Issei said he would wait outside and stepped out of the room. Kiba joked that Aquino had seemed comfortable near him, and Aquino shot a small electric spark beside Kiba to startle him. Kiba, frightened, promised not to tease her again. Rias followed Issei into the hallway and approached him. She wrapped her arms around his neck in a brief, emotional embrace and said she had missed him. Issei pulled away gently and asked what was going on, wanting to know who Rias had been talking to the previous night. Before Rias could answer, the platinum-haired woman announced herself as Graphia Lucifuge, servant of the BGMI family and Rias's sister-in-law, and reprimanded Rias for not being clear with Issei. Rias grew tense. Graphia insisted that Rias should be honest with Issei about their relationship. Issei, confused, asked what Graphia meant. Graphia said she would explain and revealed that Rias was engaged to another high-class demon. Issei reacted with surprise and asked Rias if it was true. Rias, with tears in her eyes, admitted it. Issei demanded to know why Rias had gone out with him if she was engaged, wondering whether it had been a plan to recruit him into her group. Rias denied that and insisted she cared about him. She reached to take his hand, but Issei pulled away, apologizing and saying he had to leave, he would come for Asia later. He walked down the corridor and disappeared from sight. Rias called after him, but Graphia told her to stay where she was. Rias remained frozen as Issei left, anger and frustration building inside her. She yelled that she was tired of people trying to control her life. Graphia placed a hand on Rias's shoulder and told her calmly that the engagement and other rules were for a greater purpose. Rias argued that it came from pride and that Issei's being a dragon was not enough to explain everything. Graphia pressed Rias for details about Issei's importance to her household and whether joining Rias's group was a real possibility. Rias, determined to protect Issei from further hurt, refused to reveal the truth about him and left the clubroom, leaving Graphia alone. The redhead sat at her desk, still worried. Issei had left, and she feared he might do something. Kiba urged Rias to say something. Kaneko insisted that the boy had done something to Rias. Rias simply shook her head. Aquino asked why she was acting that way. Asia asked with concern whether it had to do with her joining them. Rias replied that it did not. Rias sighed and decided to be honest with her friends. She asked Aquino, Kiba, Kaneko, and Asia if they could keep a secret, saying that they needed to know more than anyone. Aquino asked what secret Rias meant. Rias revealed that she and Issei were a couple. The four demons were surprised. Aquino asked how long they had been together. Rias said it had not been long. It had happened before what occurred with Asia. Kiba asked why she had not told them. Rias explained that, aside from Asia, they did not get along well with Issei and vice versa. Aquino wanted to know how it had happened. Rias declined to go into details, only saying that Issei was not a bad person and that he had lived through difficult moments like they all had, so she could not judge him. She admitted she had known how to love him for some time. When Aquino brought up Rias's engagement, Rias confessed she was tired of it and intended to do whatever she could to break the agreement and win her freedom. Kiba put a hand on Rias's shoulder and promised his support. Aquino, Kaneko, and Rias reacted with surprise, and Kiba spoke up that Rias had done much for them and that it was only fair to support her and see her happy. He added that, while they might not like Issei, Rias had looked happy with him, and if someone as generous as Asia could give him a chance, they should try as well. Rias thanked Kiba and turned to Aquino and Kaneko for their opinions. Kaneko said that Rias had done a lot for her and that if Rias believed Issei was good, she would agree. Aquino admitted she did not trust him but said she would try to get along with him, though she could not promise anything. Rias thanked her friends. Asia asked to speak and said she knew Issei and trusted him. Asia explained that he had been very kind to her, the only friend she had ever had, and that he had done everything he could to save her life. The group fell silent, each of them deep in thought about Rias and Issei. A knock came at the door. Rias went to answer and saw a certain brown-haired young man standing there. Rias recognized him as Issei and was surprised. Issei looked at her and asked to know one thing. Rias agreed to answer. He asked whether she truly cared about him, and Rias assured him that she did. Issei inquired if the man who had been there the previous night had been him, and Rias nodded. Issei then requested Rias tell him everything about the marriage arrangement. Rias agreed. Issei entered the clubroom. Everyone watched him. They still had doubts, but seeing how Rias and Issei looked at each other made them realize Rias had not been lying. Rias smiled and said she was glad he would let her explain as she took his hand. Issei admitted he had had to think a lot and that Drake had even had to give him a sharp slap. Rias was relieved that he still trusted her. Issei grew quiet and lowered his head. Rias noticed and guided him to the couch. They sat together, and Rias felt nervous, uncertain how to act. Issei apologized for leaving and for how he had spoken. Rias asked why he had done it. Issei began to answer, saying that. Issei paused and looked at the redhead, uncertain. Rias appeared worried, and Issei admitted that he was afraid something might happen to her. He told her that he had learned to care for her and did not want to lose someone important to him again. Rias reacted with surprise, then wrapped her arms around him. Issei hesitated at first, but when he noticed how the others were watching, he returned the embrace. Rias said that he was the only one she wanted to be with. Issei gently separated from the hug. She smiled, and he returned a small smile. Issei then said he was ready and wanted to know everything about the arranged marriage. Rias sighed and glanced toward a picture frame on the table. Issei followed her gaze and saw a photograph of her with two people he recognized from his visit to her home. Rias explained that her parents' situation was complicated. Long ago there had been a war among demons, angels, and the fallen, and most pure-blood demons had been wiped out. To preserve their lineage, her parents arranged a marriage for her with Razor Phoenix, a pure-blood demon. Aquino interjected that Razor was a fool. Rias added that he was a womanizer, insensitive, and a bad person. Issei said he already disliked the man without knowing him. Rias explained that her parents did not care about her feelings. They cared more about maintaining a pure line. She had tried to oppose them but they would not listen. Issei asked if there was no way to cancel the marriage, and he touched Rias's cheek. Rias said there was a way, but it was risky. She explained that her friends were bound to her as servants thanks to the evil pieces. Issei acknowledged this. Rias continued that Razor also had his servants, and if she challenged him to a duel they would have to defeat all of his servants, including him, in order to break the engagement. The problem was that they were only 5, while his group was complete. It was too dangerous to risk. Rias did not want to accept the arranged marriage, but she did not know another way. Aquino then suggested there was another option and asked if Rias knew what it was. Rias looked at Issei and then at Aquino, growing nervous and saying she would not do it herself. Aquino pointed out that Rias clearly cared about Issei and that he might care for her in return. Issei might be the best option. Issei asked what Aquino meant. Drake, appearing abruptly, bluntly explained that Issei could take the place of Razor and become the fiancé instead. Rias nodded, visibly anxious. There was an awkward silence until Issei asked how long they could delay the marriage. Aquino replied that they could delay it until Rias turned 18. Rias added that this was 3 months away. Issei thought for several minutes with everyone watching, then made a decision. He would do it, he would marry Rias. The others reacted with surprise. Drake shouted in amazement. Issei said that if it meant Rias's happiness, he would do everything he could to make it happen. Rias looked at him with watery eyes. Issei worried he had said something wrong, but the doubt vanished when Rias hugged him tightly and rested her forehead against his in a heartfelt, emotional moment. The group watched with a mixture of awkwardness and happiness at Rias's obvious relief. When they separated briefly to catch their breath, Rias realized she was still holding on to him and apologized, blushing. Issei responded quietly that he had liked the moment and wore a small smile. Kiba then stepped forward and offered a gesture of truce. He said that since Issei would be joining them by marrying Rias, it would be a good time to set aside old grudges and start on better terms. Kiba extended his hand. Issei recalled Kiba's earlier attack but noticed something in Kiba's expression that suggested he was not irredeemable, so he shook the offered hand and agreed to the truce. Issei also said he wanted to train with Kiba to learn and improve their abilities. Kiba admitted he was nervous at the idea, and Issei reassured him that he did not want to hurt him, he only wanted to test their skills and help them grow. Kiba accepted, asking when they would begin. Issei said they could start the next day, but first he needed to buy clothes for Asia, who was currently sleeping in his bed and only had a uniform and the dress she arrived in. Aquino offered to accompany them to buy clothes, noting that Asia was now part of their group and should be cared for. Issei was surprised and grateful. Rias took Issei's hand and said that they would not leave Asia behind, she was part of them. Issei thanked Rias and then turned to Aquino to express his gratitude, his words trailing off as they prepared to help their new companion. Issei asked Aquino if everything was all right. Aquino replied that she was fine and that Asia would be all right too. Issei said he would leave before the shop closed and told Rias that they would see each other later. They exchanged a brief, understated farewell. Issei then greeted Kiba and Aquino and wished them a good day. Both nodded in response. Kiba offered a small smile while Aquino remained neutral. Issei noticed Kaneko watching him with curiosity, and both felt something strange at the sight of each other. Kaneko wished Issei a good day and Issei, feeling awkward, thanked her. Issei told Asia that he would come for her later. Asia nodded with a big smile, and they embraced for a few seconds before parting. Issei opened the door and left, walking through the academy toward the entrance and passing several corridors while attracting the attention of the women who saw him go by. Inside Issei's mind, Drake smiled and remarked that Issei was driving the women crazy. Issei asked what he meant. Drake said there were things Issei did not yet understand and that he would explain them someday. Issei asked if the explanation could happen now, but Drake said he was not in the mood. Issei teased the dragon for being lazy. Issei reached the academy exit, saw his motorcycle in the distance, mounted it, started it, and rode off toward the shop. He did not know that a certain Platina was watching from afar. The brown-haired young man rode his motorcycle aimlessly, needing to think. Drake told him in his mind to calm down, and Issei responded that he did not know how. Drake warned that Issei did not know what he was doing. Issei admitted he had been with an engaged woman and felt betrayed. Drake reminded him that the woman had claimed she felt nothing for that other man. Issei dismissed the claim, calling the other man a demon and refusing to trust him. Drake accused Issei of letting pride guide him. Issei countered that he was being realistic. Drake urged him to listen to her, and Issei argued that there was nothing to gain. The woman had been engaged. Drake pointed out the moments they had shared together. Issei wondered why Drake cared so much about his love life. Drake replied that Issei was overly sensitive and took lies as personal attacks. Issei pulled to the riverbank and fell silent. Drake reminded Issei that he had attacked the Redheads group without knowing their intentions. Issei tried to explain, saying they had wanted something from him. Drake clarified that they had wanted him to join them, but after he failed to speak with their leader they had left him alone. and Drake noted that Issei had been the one to bring Asia back to life. Issei conceded but hesitated when Drake asked why he defended the woman. Drake said he did it for Issei's own good, because since arriving in Ku she had been the only person to keep him from acting like a violent maniac. Issei stayed silent for a long while. Drake insisted he was right. Normally the problems of others did not interest him, but Issei was different. He was the strongest bearer Drake had known, and he needed to stay strong. Issei admitted it was hard. Drake asked what he meant by hard, and Issei looked at the river and remembered everything. Trusting someone felt difficult. Those who had been with him since the incidents might no longer be alive, and he feared opening himself to someone only to have them leave or be lost. Drake linked this fear to the situation with Rias and the man from before. Issei recalled the moment when he had shouted that he would live his life as he pleased and the other man had mocked Rias as naive. Drake asked what Issei thought. Issei allowed that Drake had suggested the woman might not be lying. Drake clarified that he had not said that explicitly, though it was possible. Issei resolved to speak with her and restarted his bike. 11:45 a.m. Issei was at the store, paying in cash at the cashier. The clerk informed him that the bed would be delivered to his residence in 2 days and that they would call to confirm. Issei thanked the clerk, who wished him a good day, and he left. In the parking lot, Drake commented in Issei's mind that it was a relief to be done. Issei joked that if this meant living a normal life, he would rather be in the woods. Drake laughed at the exaggeration, and Issei smiled, saying he had not eaten yet and was starving. Issei rode home, parked the bike in the garage, and entered through the door into the kitchen. He saw a plate on the table, bacon, eggs, toast, and a cup of hot chocolate. Issei noted that Asia had prepared everything and that it looked good. Drake reminded him that the food had been sitting for hours and should be heated. Issei moved to use the microwave, and Drake scolded him for doing it the old-fashioned way. Issei admitted he had forgotten about the microwave, put the food in, set the timer for 2 minutes, and waited. While the food heated, Drake asked if Issei was sure he wanted to marry Rias. Issei thought for a long 30 seconds before admitting he was not completely sure, but if marrying her would help her, he would do it. Drake observed that Issei cared a great deal for her. Issei acknowledged that Rias had been the only person to support him since arriving in Ku and that he liked her, so he would do his best for her. Drake then asked about Kuroka, and Issei froze as memories flooded back. The microwave finished, snapping him out of his trance. Issei removed the food, sat down and ate. He told Drake that he could not forget Kuroka and that he had promised to find Chiron. He would search for her and would not give up until he had them both by his side. Drake reminded him to be prepared for anything. Issei sighed and said he did not know what would happen, but that it would likely not be something good. 5:50 p.m. Issei walked through a quiet park. A couple of boys played basketball in the distance. 2 women sat on a bench, each cradling a baby and laughing together. Children ran and played with their parents. Issei watched them and felt a gentle comfort. Drake, curious, asked why he had come here. Issei answered that he had come as a child and that returning now felt right. After a month in Ku, he wanted to remember those good times. Drake acknowledged this. Watching the children on the swings, Issei smiled but then looked down as a tear slipped to the ground. Drake asked if he was all right. Issei laughed, wiped his face, and explained that the swing memories were with a friend he used to play with. Drake recalled that Issei had mentioned that girl before, Irina, and Issei confirmed she had been his only friend. He looked at the children again and wondered what had become of her. Rias and Asia. Rias and Aquino walked toward the academy exit and met Asia, who seemed to be waiting for someone. Rias greeted Asia and Asia returned the smile. Rias asked if she was waiting for Issei. Asia nodded and glanced at the street, suggesting he might be running late. Asia agreed with that possibility. Issei walked the streets toward the academy. Drake asked why he had not taken the bike. Issei answered that he had used it a lot and would take it to the gas station tomorrow. Drake acknowledged this. As Issei crossed a narrow alley, he sensed the presence of demons and stopped. Drake asked if he felt it too. Issei confirmed and told Drake to act like nothing was wrong. The presence moved closer. At the right moment Issei turned. His gauntlet materialized and aimed at a figure in golden armor with purple details. He demanded to know who the figure was, but other armored demons closed in and seized his arms. Issei struggled to break free, but the demons held tight. Drake warned that he should not let things get ugly. A calm female voice said he would not be able to do much. Issei looked up and saw a silver-haired woman in a maid outfit standing less than a meter away. She had to look slightly upward to meet his eyes. Issei registered the recognition and assumed the demons had come with her. The woman explained that these were troops of Lucifer, the Demon King, and she had requested their services. Drake cautioned that their allies were strong and advised Issei not to do anything reckless. Issei replied that he understood, but made it clear he would respond if anyone tried to harm him. He then asked the woman what she wanted. The silver-haired woman, Graphia, asked in a serious tone what kind of relationship he had with her sister-in-law. Issei found the question ridiculous and stated that Rias was his girlfriend. Graphia pointed out that Rias was engaged. Issei said he did not care, Rias did not want to marry, and he intended to help her undo that engagement. Graphia asked how he planned to do that. Issei declared that he would fight for Rias's hand, ready even to face Razor Phoenix and his entourage if necessary. Graphia warned him that he did not understand the trouble he was getting into. Issei acknowledged the danger but gave a confident smile to show he was not intimidated. Graphia's anger grew at his determination. Drake, excited, remarked that Issei was making bold claims. Issei, amused, relaxed his gauntlet and continued the conversation. Issei explained that Rias had told him about Razor and painted him as a bad man. Graphia attempted to speak but hesitated and could not find the words. She said Rias had told her about the war years, but that history did not justify taking advantage of her daughter's future. As Rias's sister-in-law, Graphia expected Issei to understand that. Silent for a moment, Graphia stepped back, surprised by Issei's resolve. Issei said she would not be able to stop him and spoke with a firmer tone. Graphia warned him that in a week he should expect an unexpected visit and to be prepared. When Issei asked who it would be, Graphia only said he would see and repeated that he should be ready. She snapped her fingers. The demons released Issei's arms and vanished with Graphia through a magic circle, leaving him alone in the alley. Alone, Issei told himself he would be ready. Ku Academy. The brown-haired young man had arrived at Ku Academy, and by luck Asia was standing at the entrance accompanied by Rias. The girls spotted him from a distance and waved, and Issei approached to join them. Issei greeted Asia with a smile. Asia returned his greeting and they embraced for a few seconds before stepping back and noticing that Rias wore a serious expression. Issei wondered what was wrong, and his inner voice Drake teased that it was obvious he was jealous and completely smitten. Issei smiled at the idea and asked Rias why she looked so serious. Rias said there was nothing wrong. Issei reminded her that Asia was his friend but Rias was his girlfriend, and he expressed his affection with a quick, affectionate touch to her cheek. Rias admitted that she might have been a little jealous. Issei finished her thought and laughed, calling Rias adorable. Rias smiled shyly and returned the gesture. Issei then asked if the two of them had been waiting long. Asia said they had and asked why he had been delayed. Issei explained that he had been at the store buying Asia's bed. Asia asked if the bed was already at his home, and Issei clarified that it would arrive in 2 days but reassured her that she could continue sleeping on his bed for now because the sofa was comfortable. Asia offered a slightly embarrassed smile. Issei added that he still needed to buy her clothes. Asia said she did not worry because both Aquino and Rias had decided to accompany her the next day. Issei looked at Rias and Rias smiled in confirmation, assuring him that she was certain and that she did not mind. Rias took Issei's hand, and he accepted. Issei thanked Rias with a warm gesture to her cheek. After a brief pause, Issei suggested that it was time to leave. Rias let go of Issei's hand and appeared embarrassed, which Issei noticed and thought about for a moment before calling softly to get her attention. When Rias responded, he asked if she would like to accompany them and offered to prepare something to eat if she wished. Rias blushed and smiled, saying she would love to join them. Issei was pleased. The three of them set off together toward Issei's house. The walk was mostly quiet, they did not have much to say. When they arrived, Rias looked surprised at Issei's home. Issei produced his keys and opened the door, letting the girls enter first. Rias admired the house and called it beautiful. Issei apologized modestly for not having many things and said he only had what was necessary. Rias reassured him that there was no need to apologize and that she liked it. Issei was surprised and asked how he had managed to get everything. His inner voice Draig offered to help explain, and Issei said that the place had been a family inheritance and that it had taken a lot of paperwork to secure it. Rias congratulated him on having a very nice house. Asia then appeared in a kitchen apron and announced that she was going to prepare dinner. Issei protested that Asia did not need to do that, but Asia insisted. Issei offered to help her. Rias guided Asia to the kitchen and Issei stood there, confused and wondering what had just happened.